Good morning, early game crew. You're halfway through the week. Officially. I'm Elijah Campbell. He's Preston Thorne. Captain David Dare behind the glass, filling in for Jen Jensen one last time. Can we give it up for Dave? Can we give it up for Dave? Dave has been a trooper. He is not normally coming in at this hour and had to do it 3 times this week. He is on the back end of finally getting back to his normal working hours.
Yes. So I look, but I love working with you guys. You guys are just great. You're fantastic.
You're fantastic.
Thank you, sir. I know you love working with us, but I think you probably love sleep more.
Yes.
Yes, that's true.
Understood.
I can see it in your eyes, and I get it. I'm finally getting accustomed to the whole getting up early thing. We're getting there.
Yeah, it hits you. Now, Elijah, here's an important order of business here. Wednesday is universally known as Hump Day.
Yes.
Not in my world. Thursday is Hump Day in my world.
Really? Okay.
Yes. So this is
Interesting.
I just want to make sure we understand this. And now it can be Hump Day to anybody else if you're listening. And Hump Day is to you. And obviously, I'm talking about Monday through Friday workers, 9 to 5ers. I'm talking about regular,
traditional
work schedule.
Yeah.
But to me, Thursday is Hump Day. So I just wanted to make sure you understood where I was coming from on that.
Okay, I'll tell the stenographers not to necessarily strike it from the record, but maybe if we can do in the little footnotes there and
you didn't say Hump Day.
Yes.
You said midweek, and it is midweek.
Yes,
but I just don't think it's Hump Day because I do think once you get to Thursday, you're over the hump to Friday.
Do they call it Hump Day because you're on the hump, or then you're getting it over? However, that is a very optimistic type look of it. To refer to it as Hump Day because you are over it at that point.
Well, once you get to me, it's like Wednesday. Once you hit Wednesday, you still got to go to Thursday. Thursday's still right around the corner. But once you finish Thursday, it's like,
then you've
made it.
Then you are rounding third and heading home, and you're rounding third like you're Ray Fosse in home plate.
Again, this is only for Monday through Friday traditional work schedules. I wholly recognize that there are large swaths of people who that means nothing to because they're working the weekends or they're working third shifts or they're so I totally understand.
Been there before.
Yes,
used to work as a full-time job, concert security. Where my work hours, my work week started Thursday night and ended early Sunday morning at like 3 or 4 a.m.
I totally understand, and we embrace everybody.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you all for being here.
Yeah, no matter what part of the week you are in, for you right now, thank you for listening. And if you are somebody that is one of those late shifters, but you're able to have access to like a TV at work or something, I don't know, different jobs have different setups. If you had your TV on SEC Network, starting at midnight last night, you got to watch and relive the South Carolina-Missouri football game.
Launch them! My favorite call for the year, Todd Ellis with the infamous launch them call where Rocket scores the touchdown. It's my favorite call of the whole year.
That's great. Oh, that was great.
It was Todd Ellis with the launch them, and then you finish it off with, no, we just scored. So it was one of my favorite calls of the whole year.
Oh, man. And Todd Ellis had some bangers last year.
Yes.
But that one probably takes the cake. That in the third
It was the crack in the voice. It was the crack in the voice that just got me on that one.
I love that one.
It's tremendous.
I love it. I think Sean McDonough is the king of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And some people mock him for it, but I'm like, no, it's genuine excitement.
Right.
When the voice cracks, it's genuine excitement. As somebody whose voice cracks way too frequently in a field in which they are talking for 3 hours a day.
Right.
So I totally get it. I completely get it. But SEC Network, all day today, it's Carolina Day. So they're showing the highlights from the South Carolina Gamecocks of the entire sports calendar. If there's one thing you want to rewatch today, Preston Thorne, what do you think it is? Because obviously the Clemson football game is going to be on there. The Clemson basketball game is going to start in an hour, because right now they're showing the softball win over LSU. But in terms of football, they have the Clemson game, Missouri game already aired, and later this afternoon, the Texas A&M game. So I think if you're going to pick 3 games from last year,
those are 3 great games. 3 great games to watch. I think out of those, obviously Clemson.
Yes,
that was tremendous. But Texas A&M is right there. Missouri's very close behind. So if you're looking at the football games, those are 3 bangers to watch for sure. Obviously, they have a pick. They have what are we watching? LSU versus softball right now. That was fun.
Regular season win, big regular
season win. So yeah, there are some great ones to take advantage of this year.
And for me, I wish the Missouri and A&M games were flipped. I would like to have been up to watch the Missouri one because that was my favorite outside of the Clemson game. Because I think that one's obvious. That's like the
that's a clear one, right?
Card.
Yes.
Yeah. But my favorite SEC win last year from South Carolina was definitely the Missouri win, mostly because of how it ended. And then you had like the backstory of, look, we haven't been able to beat Eli Drinkwitz since he got to Missouri. For some reason, he's been the program's boogeyman at multiple stops. And then, like, when Luther Burden scored that touchdown, which was an amazing play, by the way, that's one of those things that if you, and we'll get into this later in the show, too, because today's kind of like secondary day for us. We're going to look at the Gamecock secondary, and some of the stats in Old Man versus Analytics at 6:30 will include target stats in terms of how these corners and safeties
I might be able to get to this one.
Performed when they were targeted. But that was one of those plays where I'm not chalking that up to bad DB play. Luther Burden's just a bad dude.
He's just a baller. Now, the play before that, which is my favorite play of the whole year, is when Nick Emenwari tackled him on 2nd and 11, making it 3rd and long in the open field, one-on-one. Everybody, if you listen to the show, you know that's my favorite play of the year. And I was thinking, oh, man, this game is a wrap. We got it. And then we didn't have it. And then we did have it. So it was yeah. To be honest, if you were to just, let's say if we were playing nameless, faceless opponent.
Coaches love doing that.
Nameless, faceless opponent, right? Missouri might have been the one of the year.
Yes.
If you just just the game.
Gut checkness. There's a gut check level to that win where you have to kind of bounce back. And that's the game, too, where Lenoris threw for over 300-plus yards in that game.
Yep.
And I think that was the game, to me, that opened my eyes to maybe he is pro-level passer good, right? Because he won you that game with his arms, or with his arm. He didn't throw with his left hand.
Well, you could say his arms when he was throwing stiff arms. Getting people off of him all day, throwing elbows. So maybe you can say that.
I think we can attribute that to that one as well. And then, of course, the Texas A&M game was fun because you clubbed a top 10 team to death at home in the second half. And really, the one play I would just want to relive was Lenora Sellers getting B.J. Mays outlined in chalk later in that game where he just ran him over. That was one of those plays, like, not many times in a press box you get like an entire group of professional sports writers and sports media members who are very objective observers to go, oh.
Yeah, because that's not supposed to happen, right?
No.
Right, everybody's you're just supposed to be taking notes and,
you're supposed to be doing your thing, yeah. But I have a very reactive face. I have a very expressive face, and I talk with my hands and stuff a lot. So there's a lot of times I'm surrender cobering in the press box, but that was one of those where everybody kind of does like the Friday, like, damn, like type thing right there. That was pretty cool. I would like to relive that again and be able to watch it. But that's going on.
Well, that'll be at 11 o'clock if you want to watch that one.
Yes. I know it's going to be on my TV when I'm preparing for the show tomorrow. But that's what we got today. We have a full list of replayed events. And again, here in less than an hour, you'll be able to watch arguably the highlight of the men's basketball season when they beat Clemson.
Arguably.
I would say beating Arkansas like a drum the way they did was pretty cool.
That was cool. You're right.
Now, the list is small. It is a small list. It's not like football where we're kind of looking at it and being like, okay, here's the obvious one, and here's a bunch of other ones we can consider seconds. That one, it's the wins were small and minimal, but we enjoyed them when we got them.
That's true.
We enjoyed them when we got them. But there's another thing to look forward to today outside of getting to relive some of the best moments in Gamecock athletics in 2024. Scott Hamilton from the Post-Courier was even on Paul Feinbaum yesterday. Kind of reported that today may be the decision day for one Rasul Faison, and it's July 9th. Is it July 9th?
That is correct.
I made sure, I was like, I don't remember updating the doc here. It tells me what day it was supposed to be. But it's July 9th. They appealed for they applied for this year of eligibility in January. So doing the math, that's 7 long months. The NCAA not making a decision until they're expected to today. Preston Thorne, what does your gut tell you? Not what we think necessarily based on context clues, but what does the voice in the belly of Preston Thorne tell him?
I would, man, we're in a whole new world of litigation. We'll go into Lawsuit City a little bit later on in the show. We are going to take a trip to Lawsuit City.
It's in the GPS right now.
Right, loading it up. So I don't know, man. I don't trust the NCAA to do the right thing in any circumstance. So I would say prepare prepare yourselves accordingly.
Yes, prepare for the worst, but continue to hope for the best.
I guess that's the best approach.
I've got a slimmer of optimism.
Slither?
Slither. Yes,
Okay.
yes, it's slimmer. Yeah, that's a slither of optimism. Or the optimism is slim. If I really wanted to stick with the term there, a slither of optimism. But it's not much, man. I feel like the more the months went by, no answer became bad answer. And I think that's the case in a lot of things. When you're expecting an answer or clarity on a certain situation, whether it's dealing with something like the NCAA or working with any type of litigation whatsoever, or even asking for a favor from parents, right? No answer, bad answer, the longer time goes on because there's a preparation to tell that person no.
Elijah, when you say maybe, is that traditionally a maybe leaning towards yes for you or maybe leaning towards no for you?
Traditionally, I'd say maybe is yes, because I am a optimist. I consider myself to be an optimist, right? Even in life's tougher obstacles and situations, I like to look at the road that is more bright. I like to consider those, but I am definitely preparing for the worst in those. But wait.
Let's reframe this.
Yeah.
Somebody invites you to a social event.
Okay.
You hit them with a maybe.
Better.
Is that leaning maybe I'm coming or I'm probably not coming?
That's probably not. Okay, in those things. Okay, yeah, in terms of making plans, a maybe is a prepare for me not to, but I'm not ruling it out.
Not ruling it out.
Because I'd be ready to hit you that text like, hey, on my way. ETA is like 20 minutes.
But you like to give yourself some space to say no.
Yes.
Okay.
I like to give myself some gray area.
So is that what the NCAA did to us? Is they were just like, maybe, we'll see, but we're probably.
Yeah. It's almost like a maybe we need to prepare for a document to tell him that this is not going to happen, and we don't want to do that just yet.
I don't know, man. I just, to me, it's, and I guess I guess I've done enough research, but I still haven't figured out what exactly is the case.
What's the holdup? Right.
I don't know what the litigation actually is in this circumstance. So I'm really trying to figure out what the holdup is. Why are there issues? So I don't know.
Well, good thing the NCAA doesn't move their goalposts when it comes to precedent.
Good thing we always know exactly where they stand. We always know.
Yes, exactly. And that every case is going to be the exact same no matter what.
Correct.
A funny thing the NCAA is, but also funny thing football can be sometimes. Just in general, you can dominate the line of scrimmage in a game, run and throw for a ton of yards, do everything required to win a football game, but still lose because of turnovers. Now, can South Carolina create enough turnovers next year defensively to get them to that next step? That next step, you may ask? History, the college football playoff. That's what we're going to be discussing next as we're talking secondary, this Gamecock secondary here on the early game.
Hey, Columbia, it's Preston for Cato's Power Equipment. Cato's Power Equipment has been family-owned and serving the Midlands since 1983. It has helped everyone from weekend warriors to professional landscapers. And third-generation owner Ben Cato provides top-notch service, great deals, and the mom-and-pop values that you love. Ben is determined to raise the standard of sales, service, and retail. At Cato's, we are proud to offer a wide selection of new and pre-owned mowers, tractors, and more. So if you're ready to invest in something new, the friendly team is there to make the process easy, help you choose the right equipment, find financing options, and keep your gear running strong with expert service and parts. Whether you're a weekend warrior or a seasoned landscaping pro, Cato's has you covered. And we've got a huge selection of new and pre-owned mowers, tractors, and all the gear that you need for your outdoor project. So swing by Cato's Power Equipment today or call them at 803-254-3711. That's 803-254-3711.
Hey, a couple of problems to start off your morning. We have a couple of wrecks, and they are at Congaree Road at Air Base Road. Also got one at Clemson Road and Hard Scrabble. Your weather outlook for today. Well, it's going to be warm again, but not as bad as yesterday. Got a 60% chance of rain, high in the low 90s. Tonight, a stray shower or thunderstorm around low 70s. Tomorrow, though, it looks like severe thunderstorms on tap all day, highs in the 90s. Chance of rain around 65%. So look out for those severe thunderstorms for tomorrow. Captain Dave, Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center.
Welcome back into the early game. Football can be a funny game sometimes, Preston Thorne. I'm sure you've played in plenty of football games where you dominate the line of scrimmage, You run for a ton of yards. You controlled the clock. The time of possession nerds were celebrating in your favor, but you lost the turnover differential 3-0. And that's what ends up being the difference in a game, because then the offense doesn't have to travel very far. That could be, I think, defensively, outside of stopping the run, I think I prioritize that as number one. But one thing that can make a good defense a great defense and cover a lot of warts is if you do what the Gamecocks did last year and force a ton of turnovers.
Yeah, you want to be able to force turnovers, right? That's the big idea, right? You don't want to just, and we'll watch attendance up here. I think there is a difference between forced turnovers and unforced turnovers. The guy just drops the ball. You get really fortunate. You get really lucky or something like that. But what they specialized last year was putting teams in pressure situations and then making the other team crack underneath the pressure, whether that was interceptions. Obviously, you had, I keep saying this over and over, the Bronco Nagurski winner on one side.
Yep.
A maniac on the other side. Those dudes were very instrumental in helping the secondary force a lot of the turnovers that they did.
And one of the plays last year that really, to me, kind of highlighted how this defense forcing turnovers changed games. Cut 13, Dave, if you don't mind. This play right here is one of those that was an absolute game changer and turned a game that looked like it was going into a pretty bad direction and changed the course of how we think about this loss.
10 seconds remaining. Timeout was taken the last one. Milroe in the pocket. Wants to throw. Got some time. Got a crossing route into coverage and is picked off. Carolina's got some blockers down the far sideline. At the 20.
Run out of
15, 10. That's Jalen Kilgore.
He ran out of
Is it a touchdown? The time is run out in the first half. Did he get run out of bounds?
Well,
He did get out of bounds with 2 seconds left, and the Gamecocks were able to get a field goal.
Talk about one of the things we're going to do this year is this idea of game of inches, because what happens if he doesn't go out of bounds? Or what happens if he scores? Well, it's like, everything can happen.
And imagine being Jalen Kilgore in that situation, being like, I can try to score this, but if I don't, then that's the half. And that field goal made a big difference in terms of what ended up happening later in the game. It turned what could have been a 21-9 game if Alabama was able to connect on a few of those passes and maybe get one to the end zone. Ended up being 14-12 at halftime. And then at halftime, you're thinking, oh, we got a shot. Mm-hmm. But that defense did this a lot last year. Preston, one thing when I went back and looked at some of the total numbers, the team averaged over an interception a game. They picked off a ton of passes last year. And then in terms of forced turnovers, they forced 23 on the year, almost 2 a game. Like, talk about creating your own luck. But one of the guys, or the guy that led the team in interceptions last year, Jalen Kilgore, is back. And I think that's the returner that might not be appreciated enough in terms of a national level. Because I feel like we appreciate Jalen Kilgore a lot here. Because he's given the Gamecocks some really good service in terms of forcing turnovers, being solid on the back end. But from a national standpoint, the defense is highlighted by Dylan Stewart. But Jalen Kilgore's kind of created a draft profile for himself where he could be the next great South Carolina defensive back taken in the first round.
Yeah, and a long line of dudes. He looks like he's lining up to join that crew. And as you look at the defense from last year, this just shows you how great that defense was, because you're going to have to go down pretty far before somebody would say, oh, yeah, Jalen Kilgore was the best player. You would have to say, you have to say Kyle Kennard. You'd have to say Tonka Hemingway, TJ Sanders, Dylan Stewart, Demetrius Knight, Nick Emenwari. Oh, and then the actual dude who led the team in interceptions, the dude who was tied for the SEC lead in interceptions. He's on the second, like, you would have to flip the page to get to him before you start to say that he's the best player. And I know what happened. You're turning on the tape, you're watching all these other dudes, and then this one guy just keeps showing up on tape. Mm-hmm. He keeps showing up in the run game, in the pass game. And listen, we got us one. And it's going to be really fun to see what he does this year.
And I'm not saying he's Stephon Gilmore, because Stephon Gilmore's in a class of his own. I'm still on the record. I said on these airways before, I think Stephon Gilmore got robbed of consideration for the 2019 MVP. Not saying he should have, because Lamar Jackson was a thing, but he wasn't even considered a finalist. He should have been considered a finalist that year. But one thing Stephon Gilmore did really well, the more I go back and watch those old teams, is how good of a blitzer he was and how good he was as a tackler and in the run game. And Jalen Kilgore, like you said, all over the place in the run game. And he's also opportunistic. When I went back yesterday and I watched all of his interceptions from last year, There were a couple times where he jumps on jumps a route, makes a play. The Alabama one, for instance, he just jammed the receiver off the line and got that pick. But he was opportunistic, like the Old Dominion one, deflection, heads up play, caught it. The Missouri game, ball's overthrown, but he's at the right place at the right time. He was always at the right place at the right time. That allowed him to be opportunistic. And being opportunistic on defense can even make a subpar defense championship caliber. And obviously, as a New Orleans Saints fan, the only year they actually won a Super Bowl was one of their more average defenses. I went back and looked at it yesterday to make sure I got my facts straight here. 20th in points against in the NFL that year. 26th in passing yards surrendered. 21st in rushing yards surrendered. They were number 3 in turnover percentage, and just the percentage of their opponent's drives that ended in a turnover. And then you go to the NFC Championship game. Tracy Porter picks off a ridiculously dumb Brett Favre pass to give them a chance to go to overtime and win that game. Tracy Porter also picks off Peyton Manning in the Super Bowl when they're up only 7 and the Colts are in territory, getting ready to tie this game up with less than 4 minutes left. He picks it off, takes it to the house, ball game after that. That was not a great defense. They gave up a lot of yards. They did a lot of bending, but they also broke a lot of offenses because they forced you into really stupid stuff. That's something that I can see in terms of a best-case scenario for this Gamecock defense. If you're not able to stop the run like you did last year, and you regress in some things, if you're still forcing turnovers at a high rate and you're still opportunistic, there's still a high ceiling on this defense.
So I'm going to go to another analytic that I find valuable. Stop rate.
Oh, I love stop rate.
Right?
Oh, now you're speaking my language.
I'm trying to come into your world a little bit.
You are.
Right?
Oh, you are firmly entrenched.
So one of the things is that South Carolina's defense last year, I believe when I looked it up, they were 13th in the nation in stop rate. So they were extremely good. What is stop rate? If you're an old person like me, you're trying to figure out, stop rate is how many times they stop a team on third down, right? Essentially, when are they ending drives? Through punt, through turnover, whatever the case is. They were very good last year in stop rate. And so not only were they opportunistic when they had chances, but oftentimes they would just buckle down and play regular old defense and get a team to punt, which to me is an indication of how consistent you can be over a year. So they weren't like the Saints where they'd have to pull a horseshoe out of their behind to get a play or make sure something happened. They would just be stopping teams. For instance, the Ole Miss game. They stopped Ole Miss consistently.
Yeah,
game,
they did.
Right? They stopped them consistently. They just didn't have any offense, and obviously the worst play call of the year.
They gifted some short field position to that.
But
Ole Miss offense.
if you look at that game through the perspective of stop rate, they were very good, and they did that consistently last year. So when you put that, and as you stated, maybe if they regress slightly in those other ways, but they're still very opportunistic in turnovers, the defense still has a chance to be very good. And obviously having somebody like Jalen Kilgore, who, again, projected to be very high in NFL circles. So, yeah, that secondary is where the spot where it looks like this team is going to have their strength.
Absolutely, and that could be maybe a ceiling raiser for this team. But it's not just Jalen Kilgore. I know he did make some of the more incredible plays on defense last year and help fuel an incredible defense. But what do the numbers say about his season? What do the numbers say about newcomer Brandon Cisse? What do the numbers say about some of your key returners, guys like DQ Smith, here for senior year, or a Peyton Williams, expected to have a bigger role, or a Judge Collier, who blossomed at the end of last season? What do the numbers say? Preston's going to help play Rosetta Stone here and decipher some of those numbers on Old Man versus Analytics. That's next here on the Early Game.
Preston here for our good friends at Integrated Media. We've been trying to tell you all year that you needed to get your outdoor setup ready. Well, guess what? We are barreling towards the season. The season is getting closer and closer, and you need to call the folks at Integrated Media so you can get everything you need to watch these games. You can get Samsung Series TVs that are waterproof. You can get Sonos outdoor speakers for TV and music, or Wi-Fi that works indoors and outdoors, so you can have all of your equipment sitting outside with you. You can have your phone, in front of your laptop, in front of your tablet, in front of your big screen, and you can have it all playing on beautiful speakers so you can hear Todd make all those beautiful calls like launch them. You can hear all those great things. From home theater setup to adjusting your thermostat or monitoring your security systems from your cell phone, Integrated Media is the company that you need to call. Call 803-948-8327. That's 803-948-8327. Or you can reach them online at integratedmediainc.com.
An accident this morning, Clemson Road at Hardscrabble, also one at Congaree Road at Airbase Roads. Weather outlook for today. Partly cloudy skies, some thunderstorms could occur for you in the afternoon. That's not unusual for this time of the year. Highs are in the low 90s. Tonight, stray shower thunderstorms. And then mostly cloudy skies, lows in the mid-70s. Tomorrow, though, we could see severe and often thunderstorms. I guess that's the best way to put it. It's a very high chance of it. Highs in the low 90s. Friday, partly cloudy, thunderstorms. Saturday, partly cloudy, thunderstorms. Sunday, scattered thunderstorms. And highs in the 90s for all those days. This is Captain Dave Wetzel, Automotive Traffic Center.
4 safeties back. Cook in the gun, 9 seconds remaining, throwing underneath, and that's picked off if it's good. He made the catch, and Carolina's got the football. Oh my goodness, Brady Cook with his second interception on the year, and this could seal it with 4 seconds to go. Jalen Kilgore with his 4th pick of the season.
Indeed it did, Todd. That sealed it. That sealed the 34-30 win over Missouri back in November. One of Jalen Kilgore's 5 interceptions he had on the season. I'm Elijah Campbell. He's Preston Thorne. Captain David Dare playing that clip behind the glass. And shout out Todd Ellis, another great call. He was on fire that night.
Absolutely.
That was one of his best performances
Absolutely.
of the season for my man Todd. But that's what we're kind of focusing in on Old Man versus Analytics today. Broke down some PFF numbers about some of the returning secondary players.
Okay.
And we're going to see if the conclusions that we draw up here are reasonable, or if we can decipher what some of these mean. And I know we've been talking about Jalen Kilgore's interceptions. I know we just played a clip of him picking off Brady Cook to seal the deal against Missouri. But his highest run grade, or his highest grade, I just kind of played my hand there, his highest grade on PFF is his run defense at 74.6. Is that really his strong suit?
Ooh, I like this question. I'm going to say yes. I agree.
Okay.
The analytics agree with my eyes, because when I watch him, and this is why it's going to be interesting to see how they decide to play him, he is very good at slipping blocks. He's very good at taking on blocks. He's very good at making tackles. When we was going through some highlights to get from him, some of his highlights were actually tackling behind the line of scrimmage. He does very good at that. I think of looking here, he had 3 tackles for loss last year, which means he can blitz well. Mm-hmm. So the analytics and my eyes do agree on this one, Elijah. I like it.
They align. They align. Look at that. And that's the thing. I think out of all the guys here, if I remember correctly, I didn't jot it down, but I kind of observed it, right? I like looking at missed tackle rate. And I think out of all the guys that we are got to allude to here, he had the lowest missed tackle rate of all of them. It was a hair under 14.5%, which for a defensive back usually grates out pretty well. Now here we go on this one. Still sticking with Jalen Kilgore here. Targeted receivers catch the ball 2 out of 3 times with Kilgore as the closest defender. The completion percentage is literally 66.6%, repeating, for an average of 15 yards. Is it a bad sign or more of a byproduct of Kilgore playing predominantly in the slot? Therefore, this stat may be needing a little more context.
Okay, my eyes tell me that he's pretty jam up as far as receivers, because I don't see him getting beat very often. It doesn't look like he's behind. So I would need more context for that, because I don't necessarily, even though I hear the numbers, I don't necessarily agree with that. If I was if I was a coach and my young GA came to me and said, hey, coach, what's this number?
66% completion percentage.
It's a 66% completion percentage on blah, 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 blah. I'd be like, yeah, we're still not throwing to that dude.
Right.
I don't care what the numbers say, right? So my eyes tell me, like, I don't know if I would trust that one.
Like, basketball's got shot charts. I want to see a completion chart on that. And then maybe if you have, like, tracking data to say, all right, this is where he was when the ball was caught, and this is where the ball was caught, that, I think, would maybe paint a better picture as opposed to maybe that. Because sometimes with some of the completion percentage numbers, when it comes to grading secondary players, my biggest beef is sometimes the defense isn't called for you to be that close to the intended receiver. So it's sometimes harder to
So you just get
gauge.
lumped in that circle?
You kind of get lumped into it.
Well, you brought up a good play. So, for instance, the Luther Burden, and Missouri play, right? That's great defense. Dude just made a play. Now, obviously, you can go back and forth on whether, either you make a play or you don't. But I don't think any reasonable person or any reasonable coach would look at that play and say, let's go right back at that dude, because more than likely that's not going to be made. So, nerd on that one.
I like it. Here's one that I found really interesting yesterday when doing some digging. So Old Dominion threw at Judge Collier 10 times in the opening game. After that game, teams only targeted him more than 5 times on 2 different occasions. That was LSU and Vanderbilt. Is this merely a coincidence or a sign of respect given his growth over the course of the year?
Okay. Traditionally, I think that can be a sign of respect. Anecdotally, coming up in the next segment, I played with Dante Robinson. I remember Dante Robinson's senior year. I remember Dante complaining like, this is pretty boring.
No one's throwing my way.
Because I'm just over here.
J.C. Horn I'm sure had a very similar complaint.
Yeah, it's like, all right, great. I'm so good that nobody wants to throw to me. I don't know if that's specific for Judge Collier, but I do know there are instances where teams just essentially say, yeah, it's not worth the risk.
Was that when Dante Robinson kind of heel turned and was like, I'm going to be the most physical defensive back maybe to ever play the game of football? Was that kind of his villain moment right there?
There is backstory to that, which I will explain.
Yes, okay, good.
But yes, he actually... he comes from the darkness, I should say.
Okay.
So,
good.
Yes.
Oh, good. I'm more intrigued now than ever to hear about that with Dante Robinson. And for just to give you a little heads up in the next segment, we were revisiting a classic start bench drop that Jay Phillips and I did earlier this summer. But since it's secondary day, we found it pretty appropriate to bring it back. All right, moving along here. Judging safeties by the percentage of passes completed against them isn't fair given the role of a safety.
Ooh. Given that what the role of a safety is.
Because you're not always in man-to-man coverage. A lot of times you are maybe in a too high, and your goal is probably not to just give up a big play, which is what every safety's, I guess, assignment is when they play the Kansas City Chiefs.
Sometimes you feel bad for safety. I think a lot of times, like last year, maybe DQ started getting like the bad rap of being the safety that just happened to be around when a guy caught the ball.
He caught the brunt of a lot of PFF
and it's not necessarily his specific fault, so that can happen to safeties a lot of times. But also, if we get really nerdy here, when you get into the Nick Saban match concepts of defenses, a lot of times safeties actually do turn into man-to-man defenders when you pattern match and blah, 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 blah. So now I'm going to give that analytic. I think we're going to judge them as defensive backs and not necessarily as safeties.
That's my thing, too. I think safety is one of the hardest, at least for me, hardest positions to evaluate how a player does unless you screw up. Like, that's like, unless you mess something up big time, it's almost kind of like offensive line, where a lot of times the stats that are offered, obviously outside of interceptions or forced fumbles for safeties, it's how many times you mess up for offensive line. How many times did you give up a sack? If you're a safety, how many times does another team have a big play against you? Because usually you're considered the last line of defense.
There's no statistic for how many plays you stopped.
Yes,
or you
exactly.
prevented. There's no statistic that says, well, because DQ Smith was in his deep third, the quarterback never took that shot downfield and they never had an opportunity to make there's no statistic for that. And fans don't care about that.
Exactly.
He could be doing his job the whole time and nobody cares. The one time when you see him chasing, you're like, oh, that guy.
You start pointing at the guy who's chasing.
And he gets beat all the time. It's like, he doesn't really, but I get it because that's who you notice.
Yeah, that's kind of the visual draw right there. Last one right here, too. Brandon Cisse is one of the more important, I guess, transfers on this team. Adds to what I think is already a strength of this team in the secondary. But teams threw Brandon Cisse's way more than 3 times in a game, only twice last year. And those 2 games were the Clemson game and Northern Illinois. In those 2 games where people actually threw his way, less than 50% of those passes were completed. 5 of 14, 2 pass breakups. Is this the sign of a potential lockdown corner?
I do think so. When teams either don't throw it, and then when they do, they're not successful. That's something that you would want to have. So I don't know whether that's because of his physicality at the line, because I haven't seen a lot of film on Brandon.
It's hard to find him individually in terms of film. I looked yesterday. There wasn't a ton of
a lot of film
isolated.
Right. So I don't know whether it's because his physicality on the line, or is it his breaking speed, or is it his ability to match patterns. I'm not sure what the deal is. But when you see that lower completion percentage against a specific person, that's a good sign for us.
And now I alluded to it earlier because today we're focusing on the secondary. I find it appropriate for us to revisit that start bench drop featuring 3 Gamecock corners who went in the first round of the draft. And of course, as always, we invite you to give your thoughts to round out the first hour of the early game. Earlier this summer, Jay Phillips and I did a start bench drop of 3 Gamecock defensive backs who were all selected in the first round. That was our criteria.
That's an important piece of information, right? Because I feel like once we give these names, there's going to be people who are going to suggest other names.
Yes.
But they have to have been drafted in the first round.
And today it's appropriate because we talked about Jalen Kilgore potentially being a first-round pick. I know I love Tankathon's NFL mock drafts. They have him going 31 to Kansas City. He's been projected by some to be a first-round draft prospect. So we thought it was pretty appropriate today to bring out this thought exercise, you can call it, that Jay Phillips and I kind of engaged in earlier this summer. Are you starting, benching, or dropping Stephon Gilmore, Dante Robinson, J.C. Horn? It's tough. It's tough because they're all 3 different corners in their own respects with different levels of versatility. And I feel like before I continue to lay mine out, I need to hear the Dante Robinson heel turn story.
So Dante Robinson comes from the dark side. He was born a heel. So when he originally was recruited, he was recruited first. Hey, Georgia, I don't know how you let a man from Athens, Georgia, come to South Carolina.
No. Yeah,
that's a
NFL
minus.
Talent. Yeah.
He was recruited. He was playing the spur position, which was like the overhang safety, long lineage of tough guys to play that position. Rashad Faison, Willie Alford, Jonathan Martin, straight up tough dudes. The dudes of the defense, really. And his coach at the time, Dave Roberts, whose only coaching point was, hell, blow his ass up. That was his only coaching point.
What else do you need?
That's his only coaching point.
What else do you need?
And so that's where Dante was trained as a spur in his freshman year. His turn was actually to become a finesse lockdown corner, but his roots, his origin is just being a tough dude. And so he eventually got back to the NFL. And so I say all that to say, obviously I'm biased because I played with Dante. I know Dante. He is a great dude, a great NFL guy. But I want to do this. I want to position that JC had the issue of playing on unlikable teams.
Yes.
And I think that might really change people's perspective on what he actually did when he was here, because he was really good.
It was. 803-404-6100. That's our Firehouse Subs text line. Or if you want to call in, give yours as well. But we'll be taking your responses throughout the show because I'm still curious to get more data on this, on what people think. But looking back on it, I went back yesterday and I watched film of all these guys and refreshed myself on what made them such great college corners. And I found myself almost watching the entire 2020 Auburn game. And I don't think in my college football watching life I've seen a cornerback, specifically a cornerback, completely break an offense the way J.C. Horn broke Bo Nix in that Auburn team. He was all over the field, whether it be picking off multiple passes, whether it be breaking up a ton of passes. They still decided to throw his way all game. I don't know why. I probably would have stopped after the first pick, but they kept throwing his way. And he also got in the backfield a lot. He was stopping the run all game. I mean, it was Auburn versus J.C. Horn, and J.C. Horn was dominating that matchup. It was, looking back on it, if you want a good, playback machine exercise, that was fun.
Yeah, J.C. was tremendous, and he took advantage of the time, and he was great his whole time that he was here. Unfortunately, it was during a not great time in USC fandom, right? You had COVID, you had Muschamp.
2-8, yeah.
2-8.
Yeah.
He didn't finish that season. He ended up not finishing the season until he opted out of the end of the season. So there's a lot of reasons why I think people wouldn't pick JC, but he was absolutely tremendous the time that he was here, and he was a great Gamecock while he was here.
And we got planned in the 8 o'clock hour some Stephon Gilmore sound because he spoke recently,
which is a rarity.
Yeah, it's not necessarily his thing.
Right.
I loved going down the Wildcat quarterback rabbit hole of Stephon Gilmore because he could spin it, man. He could spin it, and he also understood the one rule of throwing the ball on that team. Get it within the zip code of Alshon Jeffrey, and he's going to catch it.
Throw it high and far to Alshon, and it'll be okay.
And he'll go get it. Yeah, he'll go get it.
I coached against Stephon Gilmore when he was in high school, and this is not an exaggeration. We literally did not tackle him one time.
How many touchdowns did he account for?
as many as he wanted to. We literally did not tackle him. He would just run out of bounds when he needed to, or he would finish a play. We literally did not tackle Stephon Gilmore that time. That South Point team was, they were fire.
That is terrifying.
Yeah,
that
he was playing quarterback at the time. So, yes, I did see that up close and in person. So, if you wanted to make an argument for Steph being your starting guy, I totally understand that.
Underrated thing, because Steph's my starting guy. I honestly, Stephon Gilmore, I would rank within one of the 5 or 6 best cornerbacks I've seen in my life. And I love the defensive back position. Honestly, outside of quarterback, because obviously what they mean to the sport and how much revolves around them, my favorite position in football is defensive back. I love a good defensive back. And Stephon Gilmore is one of my favorites. Underrated blitzer from the corner, though.
Another guy, because he was so physical, because of that South Point culture, he was always very physical, maybe more so like Dante also. All 3 of these guys, a little bit different than your typical DB. And as far as profile, Steph does not talk very much. Dante was not a huge talker. JC has impacted the game maybe more so than anybody with the seatbelt celebration.
Yes. Oh, that's right.
The creator of the seatbelt. So his influence has been wide and far amongst the game. So I would love to listen and hear what folks have to say, what their start bench drop is going to be.
Oh, I love that. You can't fake influence, and J.C. Horn does not fake that influence. Seatbelt Gang, original member, J.C. Horn. We'll continue this discussion throughout the afternoon as well, but in the second hour, it's time for us to type in our GPS and find our way to Lawsuit City, because we're meeting the NCAA over there. We'll tell you more to kick off hour number 2.
New action, this one is going to be near Swansea It's I-26 westbound at exit 129, US 21, Columbia Road. Also, Congaree Road at Airbase Road, an accident there. Clemson Road at Hardscrabble, got a wreck there. All three of those, though, traffic is not terribly affected, especially on the 126 out of the 129. At the moment, it's moving along pretty well. Partly cloudy skies for today. Scattered thunderstorms for this afternoon. Chance of rain around 60%. Highs in the low 90s. Tonight, straight thunderstorms possible around sunset, and then mostly cloudy skies. Lows in the mid-70s. Tomorrow, though, we expect severe thunderstorms throughout the day. Highs will be in the low 90s, but do be aware that they could be severe and heavy rainfall at times. For Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, partly cloudy skies and a chance of those thunderstorms day and night. This is Captain Dave, What's Automotive Traffic Center.
Hour number 2 of the early game starts right now. Preston Thorne, do you like taking road trips? As an educator yourself, what was your feeling on the road trip?
Road trip fun. Road trip fun. As I've gotten older, I don't love it as much as I used to, but there's nothing better than the excitement prior to road trip. And one of the things I've been trying to figure out in my life, and I think a lot of people can relate, is how did I take road trips prior to GPS? Just get in the car and drive somewhere. That is absolutely unhinged, but used to do it all the time.
Used to, yeah. I think about it now. I remember the most archaic, and I'm going to put this in air quotes, I ever had to get in terms of not having GPS to get somewhere, because I got my license in, 2011?
Okay.
And I remember printing out MapQuest instructions to meet a girl that went to another school. And I've told that story to others now that are younger than me, and they look at me like I'm crazy. Like, you printed out instructions? Dude. Yeah, I printed out instructions to go meet a lady for a first date when I was back in high school. And obviously now you don't have to worry about that.
That has all the makings of a classic, right? Because
and I got lost on the way home.
There's always a girl at another school in another town that she goes to another school, man.
Well, thankfully, convincing my friends she was real was not an impossible task, because she was related to someone that went to our school. So I got confirmation. I got to say, hey, this person exists.
That sentence, though, I printed out directions to meet a girl from another school, that's a solid sentence.
Oh, it's a Hall of Fame sentence. Yeah. If not a Hall of Fame sentence, a Hall of Very Good sentence that leaves my mouth. But the NCAA doesn't need to print out MapQuest instructions to get to Lawsuit City.
I have a feeling we're going to be visiting Lawsuit City very often.
We're going to be frequent visitors.
Yeah, we won't need the GPS after a while.
It's the gas station you go to where they keep asking you, do you have a rewards card? And you keep saying, nope. And then you realize, man, I've gone here for gas or snacks, 3 times this week. Maybe I should get a rewards card. That is going to be the NCAA with Lawsuit City. It's a thing now. We've typed it in the GPS over the course of the last hour. We've been making our way there. And here we are, because yesterday, Thomas Castellanos, former Boston College quarterback, now at Florida State, has decided to push back an appeal against the House settlement. And this is from Sports Illustrated. Quote, Florida State quarterback Thomas Castellanos has joined a growing list of appeals in the aftermath of the House versus NCAA settlement ruling. The settlement ushered in a new era in college athletics. Not only are schools able to allocate up to $20.5 million directly to student athletes this year, the NCAA has been ordered to shell out $2.8 billion to current and former athletes in back pay for their use of name, image, and likeness. However, those payments could be delayed by appeals that need to be completed before damages can be awarded to former athletes and their representatives. Thomas Castellanos now part of a growing list of people who are appealing this. And part of the appeal is that he cites the selection for the college football playoff as being limiting to one's growth in name, image, and likeness and earning potential. This seems like and I think ultimately this is a small blip on the radar in terms of news and influence in terms of how long we're going to be talking about this. Like, we'll be talking about the House settlement forever. We'll be talking about Thomas Castellanos appealing it for a day. But the reason I wanted to bring this up is because the House settlement may be approved. It may be finalized. But if you think that that indicated the end of the courtroom drama, you are sorely mistaken, because Lawsuit City is a frequent home
It's booming.
for the NCAA. It's booming right now.
Yeah, Lawsuit City will be booming. Population will be growing exponentially, probably daily. The best way I heard it framed, and this is not my original thought, the best way I heard it framed is that we should all think of the House settlement as a starting line, not a finish line.
Ooh, that's good. I honestly haven't thought of it that way.
Right? So that means, and it's not my thought, but I'll take it. I'll steal it from now. You heard it from me, so it's mine. It's a starting line, not a finish line. We have just now entered the new era. In this new era, if we're going to keep the GPS metaphor going, there's going to be a lot of twists and turns, detours, delays, all these types of things that will happen before we get to what a semblance is of a working product. But we have started at the House settlement for this new era of college athletics, the rev share era. I guess that's what we're going to call it. If we're just coming out of the NIL era, we're moving into the rev share era. That's fine. I would say of the actual lawsuits, from what I understand of this particular one, this one seems like a pretty far reach.
Yeah, it seems
obviously
like a reach.
Somebody will take it, but this one feels like a reach because I think there's a lot of other things before you got to where he's talking about that there are legit gripes, such as maybe if I was a player that I was getting paid. For instance, what you saw with the athletic departments now is they front-loaded a lot of their contracts with NIL money.
They're doing that here.
They're doing that here. They're doing that everywhere because these new NIL deals won't be able to get through the clearinghouse. I can see a world where a player brings a lawsuit saying, hey, how come I got paid X amount of money last year, and now for no particular reason, for arbitrary reason, now I'm getting paid X minus money this year. That doesn't make sense. You are artificially capping my earning potential. I do see that on the horizon.
Absolutely. You know what it feels like to me, because I agree. I think the Castellanos thing with the
it feels like,
college football playoff, it's a reach, but the door has been opened up for people to be able to make those reaches. It's like when the Detroit Lions, sorry, Langston Moore, went 0-16, and they were so bad that it invited topics on sports talk shows of, can Alabama beat Detroit? We know they can't. We know they can't. A college team will not beat the NFL. That's a reach. But you know what? You were so bad at what you did on a weekly basis that you opened the door for people to be able to make those reaches, and the common person maybe not be able to find it as much of a reach because you've been getting it kicked in court so many times over the last decade and a half.
To spin it forward, I'm not sure if we're going to be driving to, I don't know if Rasul Faison is going to be taking a trip to Lawsuit City.
Oh, I think he's like Ubering there right now.
Right? He lawyered up. Mm-hmm. He got his defense. A judgment is supposed to be coming down today, I'm assuming.
Yep.
It's supposed to be happening.
That's the word.
We'll see what it says, what happens, because as you stated, the NCAA has been so inconsistent in their rulings that everybody has a opportunity to have a gripe because there really has not been any precedent set on what they say works or does not work. So, yeah, I believe Rasul is on his way to Lawsuit City, depending what the judgment is going to be here shortly.
Like, I understand the NCAA is its own entity, and it isn't like the judicial system where following precedent is highly important. So I'm not saying the NCAA has to follow their precedent all the time. But if you want to avoid headache, and you want to avoid looking inconsistent, and you want to avoid reasonable backlash, you should follow a lot of that precedent. And them being their own worst enemy and not following a lot of that is one of the reasons why they continue to be going to Lawsuit City. It's why they have rewards points at Lawsuit City. That's why Charlie Baker is leading in the polls to become mayor of Lawsuit City right now. Because the minute Mark Emmert left the NCAA as its president and Charlie Baker got sworn in, little did he know, he became the mayor of Lawsuit City. And he's running on re-election, and it's a landslide right now because of their just inability to continue to stick to precedent and make things easier for themselves. They trip up on their own feet way too frequently, and I think today might end up being one of those examples. The Thomas Castellanos thing, maybe not the best example of it, but it is an example of your inconsistency opening the door for these reaches to be made.
And to be very clear, me personally, I like Charlie Baker. I think
Yeah,
they brought him in. I think he's done as good a job with the situation he's been. But be clear, he was put in this position because he has a background as a politician. Mm-hmm. He's known to be able to negotiate, reach across the aisle, work with both sides of the aisle, and he's done this in his career. The NCAA was trying to position themselves with a guy who could win some of these battles in court. Unfortunately, they have not. But don't feel sorry for Charlie. As the mayor of Lawsuit City, he's being well compensated.
He is, and his attorneys are being well compensated.
So everybody gets paid in Lawsuit City.
Are getting padded.
It's not a problem. It's not a problem in this, but this is something to keep an eye on because, as I stated, the House settlement is a starting point, not an ending point. We will see more and more developments here.
And I think the Castellanos thing serves as more of a harbinger of what's to come too, because Deloitte has yet to turn down an NIL deal. The Clearinghouse hasn't had an opportunity to turn down an NIL deal. The millisecond that happens, Lawsuit City is going to be filling their hotels.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because here's the thing, too. For those who maybe didn't hear Jeremiah Donati on the postgame show last month, or who haven't read a lot of what he's publicly talked about, he shared that in a presentation done by Deloitte, they did a study where they said 70% of the current NIL deals would not pass the Clearinghouse. Now let's take into example a school like Texas Tech, who has arguably benefited more from the modern college sports landscape than any school in America. A never has been. They're not a has been. They're not anything else. They are
not a used to be.
Yeah, not a used to be. They're a never has been. Now they are relevant. They're relevant in football again. They're relevant in men's basketball again. They're relevant in softball. Right, they invested over $1 million for the best softball player in America, and it got them within 2 wins of winning a national championship. They are thriving in this right here too. What's going to happen when Texas Tech, who is now benefiting, and they see themselves as fairly benefiting from this system, gets one of those NIL deals turned down, and they're not able to sign that star safety or that star running back from Permian, Odessa, right? That's been starring on Friday Night Lights, playing next to Mike Winchell. The minute they can't get that player and they're turned down because of it, schools will, a lot of them are going to go back on promises they might have made behind closed doors. And I feel like you've seen that already exampled with what Tennessee and Zakai Ziegler are doing, with Zakai Ziegler suing to try to get that last year of eligibility.
Check his birth certificate.
Even though the guy's been in college forever. Van Wilder's even saying, all right, bud, I think you've had enough time. But you know that the ADs behind closed doors saying, hey, if we want to move past this, we can't just keep suing the NCAA. And what does Tennessee do? Has a player that still sued the NCAA to try to get more eligibility. The minute doesn't benefit them, there will be backtracking, and we are going to fall into a web of lawsuits. Hence the creation of Lawsuit City, established 2025. It's our thing. It is the new running bit around here. Oop, microphone fell. But it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. And it's the Castellanos thing, too, at the end, isn't something I think is groundbreaking, but it's something to watch in terms of what that will do moving forward. But there's still football to be played on the field. Thankfully, right? I'm glad to have gotten my quota of law talk out of the way. My sister's the lawyer in the family, not me. But we get to move on to the football because a prominent college football personality believes the Gamecocks are one of the most likely candidates to make their first college football playoff. Where does he have them in the rankings? And who's number one? Because the team that he has at number one, I think Gamecock fans are all too familiar with. We'll discuss that when the early game continues.
Pressing in for our friends at Absolute Glass, the premier glass company of the Midlands, offering auto, home, and business glass repair. So if the glass is damaged, shattered, cracked, or broken, they can handle the job. Cracked windshield? No problem. They'll come out to your location and replace it for you, usually for free, and they work directly with the insurance to take away the headache. That's right. They'll come out to wherever you are, school, home, work. They may even visit you in Lawsuit City. But if you're at home and you're looking to increase the value of your home, you can do that with new windows and mirrors, and Absolute Glass will come out and take care of that for you, too. Windows, mirrors, shower enclosures. I say it all the time. If you can see through it, Ray and Marianne at Absolute Glass can do it. So check them out online at AbsoluteGlassInc.com. That's online at AbsoluteGlassInc.com.
All right, you still have that accident out on 26 westbound at the 129 near Swansea in the Swansea exit. And we have a new one, a broken down car. This is going to be I-20 eastbound just before Highway 1, exit 58 in Lexington. Your weather outlook for today, partly cloudy, followed by a few thunderstorm possibility. Chance of rain around 60%, highs in the low 90s tonight. Straight thunderstorms around sunset, then mostly cloudy, lows in the mid-70s. But tomorrow, severe thunderstorms are a possibility. They can roll in and really cause problems with heavy rainfall at times, so be aware of that. It's mainly in the afternoon and evening, and highs will be in the low 90s. Otherwise, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, partly cloudy skies, and guess what? Chance of thunderstorms.
The expectations maybe have never been higher. I know during the Spurrier days, the expectations were high because the teams were great, but that was before the college football playoff, and only 2 teams got to participate for a national championship every year. Now we have 12, Preston Thorne, and the South Carolina Gamecocks have a good chance this year to maybe make some history. Well, Joel Klatt on his show yesterday said South Carolina is the 3rd likeliest team to make their first appearance.
3 teams most likely to make their first playoff. Number 3, South Carolina. Love Lenora Sellers, breakout start in the second half of last season as South Carolina won their last 6 in the regular season. Does need to cut down on turnovers, but I think that's going to come with experience. At least I felt like it did when I was playing. 13 last year. He needs to be certainly under 10. They do have a new offensive coordinator this year with Mike Schuler replacing Dal Loggins, who went to App State. On defense, they've got to replace 7 starters, including Kyle Kennard, Nagurski Award winner on the edge. That's going to be difficult. But they have one of the best pass rushers in the country. Dylan Stewart is coming off a freshman All-American season. And so Shane Beamer feels like I would certainly assume like they're going to be quality on defense. They're going to be quality on offense. They've hit the portal to fill some holes. They've got some real stars. And then the issue becomes the schedule. They've got a real good shot at starting 5-0. Toughest game is at Missouri, okay? But then it gets real when the calendar turns to October. Check this out. 4 straight weeks. At LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, at Ole Miss, then a bye week, then at A&M. Hello. They still have Clemson left in the back end of that schedule. I think they're probably in the same boat as Florida, which means like 9-3, it's going to be difficult to keep them out.
That's pretty validating because when we sit here in this market, Preston Thorne, and we look at a team that we cover pretty closely, it's easy to be optimistic, especially when you don't get to watch as much or be able to consume as much coverage of other teams in the offseason. So sometimes it can be easy to fall into the hype train and be like, okay, maybe we're just being homers. But Joel Klatt saying that they're the 3rd likeliest team to make their first college football appearance seems pretty validating, especially for the eternal optimist Gamecock fan.
Yeah, that's always great to hear. You want to hear people confirm what your opinions are because we're obviously going to be Gamecock fans, Gamecock homers. That's what it is. But when you hear Joe Klatt, who's known to be pretty reasonable, doesn't necessarily have too many leans, that is something that's encouraging. And when you hear his breakdown, it just mirrors everything that we've been saying this whole time.
And now that led me to want to put the situation, or I guess the scenarios for the Gamecocks 25 season into 2 different categories because like football and in life, there are things that are in your control that you can handle. There are also things out of your control that can keep you from reaching goals. So we kind of thought, let's give our thing that you can control that is key for the Gamecocks to be able to make the college football playoff for the first time and make Joel Klatt's premonition come true. And what are the things that are outside of South Carolina's control that need to go right, also known as an element of luck?
So let's start with something that's in their control. And unfortunately, I think mine is going to be pretty trite and cliche. But it revolves around Lenora Sellers and is taking care of the ball. If turnovers are our themes for the year, can Lenora Sellers take care of the ball? And I'll even bring it down a little bit even further. Eliminate the fumbles. Yes. I don't necessarily have as much a problem with the interceptions if he's taking a shot or if there's a play that he's trying to make. Hey, that's just what it is.
Nothing wrong with an arm punt every now and then.
No problem. But the fumbles on carries, the fumbles when he's running the ball, the fumbles of not necessarily securing the ball, I do think if they can eliminate some of those, that is something that is directly within his control, and I expect him to be better at this year.
And for me, I put ball security, but I also put run defense. I'm still one of those that if you can handle the run game at a respectable level, right? I'm not asking you to be the championship Georgia teams that weren't giving up more than 81 yards a game. You don't have to be that. I don't think you necessarily have to be last year's defense, which gave up 112. But based off the research that we talked about yesterday on yesterday's show, go back on YouTube. I did a full breakdown of what the best, or I guess maybe the average run defenses were in the field of the college football playoff for the last 5 years. The conclusion I reached is that you don't want to give up more than 120 yards on the ground per game. Specifically, you don't want to give up more than 3.5 yards per carry. That could be a good – there's some outliers. There are plenty of outliers, but those outliers also had elite-level offenses that were scoring 40 points a game. Carolina can score a lot of points a game next year, but I don't want you to have to bank on doing that. So if the run defense can hold opponents to under 120 on the ground, 3.5 carries, I think you're respectable enough to where you're going to give yourself a lot of leeway. That's something that you can control that will strengthen your defense and arguably the biggest unknown on your football team.
So to build on what Joe Klatt said, something that is out of control and something I frankly, I'm getting tired of hearing is the schedule. Hey, man, you signed up to play in the SEC.
Yep.
They assign you the games. You have to play who you got. There's not going to be too many breaks in the schedule. Maybe if you're looking at the SEC, maybe Mississippi State now is the team where people might circle and say, that's a give me.
The free space on the bingo card?
Maybe. But hey.
They're getting better. I'm a
you
Jeff
play in the
Lebby
SEC,
believer.
so you don't control the schedule. That's out of your control. But also, you don't control how the schedule breaks. You don't control what's happening in another team's season when you get ready to play them. For instance, when we played Oklahoma last year, they were terrible.
Game was over in the first 3 drives.
That wasn't our fault.
Nope. But we benefited.
Right.
Reaped the benefits from it.
They were having quarterback issues. They were firing their offensive coordinator. They couldn't figure out their offense. Hey, that's not my problem. We benefited from that. That could happen a couple of times this year, and you want to be on the positive end of that.
Oh, we're on the same wavelength here because I put obviously injuries too. You can't control injuries, and knock on wood, whatever it is that you knock on for good luck, and to not jinx things. But injuries obviously the big thing. But there's a good chance, and I'm optimistic in this, that the schedule can ease up. I think there's a scenario that exists where Ty Simpson's not very good, and Ryan Williams is in wide receiver hell and can't get the ball. And Alabama's defense is holding teams to less than 18 points a game, but they're not scoring.
By the way, we haven't seen Ryan Williams react to a situation when he's not getting the ball. That's always the test.
We have not seen that.
It's always a test for a diva wide receiver, so we'll see.
Yeah, and we have no evidence to support Alabama having a Heisman-esque run game, which is how they've survived mediocre quarterback play. I think that's a realistic thing that can happen. Oklahoma, like you mentioned, as dysfunctional as they were last year, they can easily be dysfunctional this year. So that could be maybe less of a tough game than we think. You do have to go at A&M this year, but maybe by November, A&M is doing the A&M thing, and that's starting off 7-1 and then losing 3 of their last 4. You can be 3 of those last 4.
Think about all the teams that played A&M after we broke them last year.
Yeah.
What did they lose, the last 3 or 4 or something along those lines?
It
was specifically because we broke them here in Williams-Brice. So you don't know what could happen with the schedule.
Yes, Texas A&M is like that very nice lamp that your dad got in the Fragile box that is, stocking, like a fishnet stocking leg. It turned into a lamp, right? It's fragile. They can be broken. But the big thing, too, and here's best case scenario with the schedule that I didn't really think of until this morning, Missouri. I think there's a decent chance Missouri gets it together because they have probably the best SEC draw with their schedule. It's not overly difficult. They're dodging a lot of teams. They're dodging Texas. They're dodging Georgia. They don't get Florida. Some of the best teams in the SEC, Missouri doesn't have to play this year. And it was the same way last year. You get Missouri early in September this year with a new quarterback, a bunch of new weapons on the offensive side of the ball, replacing some dudes on the defensive side of the ball as well. They may not be fully cohesive as a unit. You catch them early before they develop and you beat them, and then they get hot late and say they go 10-2 and you're one of those 2 losses, and let's say it's the last 3 spots of the college football playoff, and we're talking about South Carolina and Missouri. Head-to-head mattered last year a lot because that's what kept you out was your losses to Ole Miss and Alabama, and they were in front of you, so you weren't going to leapfrog them. You can do the reverse. Because last year, when Alabama beat South Carolina, barely, they're thinking, oh, the sky's falling. We barely beat South Carolina by 2. We were favored by 20-plus points, whatever. That ended up being arguably one of their best wins. Outside of Georgia, that was their best win. It aged like fine wine.
Yeah.
So I think there's an opportunity for that to happen as well. We'll take a quick break. On the other side, we'll continue this with our garnet glasses. We'll put on the garnet glasses, and then, of course, like we've been doing every day at 7:30 this week, we're going to get Preston Thorne one step closer to finding his NFL team soulmate. That's next here on the early game. As a sports nut, I absolutely know the significance of the number 30, Steph Curry, Ken Griffey Jr. And for Midstate Roofing, the number 30 represents almost the amount of years that they've been the proven leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry. They have a proven history, and it's your assurance that their professionals at Midstate Roofing will provide proper advice, service, and results in the needs of your facility, and it's both safe and pleasing to your operation. From high-rise to rentals, manufacturing to industrial, Midstate Roofing designs and installs bonded systems with a protective guarantee that will keep your operation dry and running long into the future. They want to remind you, too, that you can protect your roof with a maintenance contract, if I can spit it out. But just give them a call today, though, and be a little smoother with your speaking than I am. 803-356-1919, or you can hit them up online. That's at midstateroofing.com. You can speak to a technician after hours or a Midstate Roof member during hours. 803-356-1919.
All right, let's throw in a new accident this morning. This is I-20 westbound at Alpine Road, exit 76B. We also have that disabled car. It's on I-20 eastbound just before Highway 1, exit 58 near Lexington. And still that wreck out on 26 westbound at US 21, exit 129. Weather outlook for today, well, hot with thunderstorms likely for the afternoon, highs in the low 90s. Tonight, thunderstorms likely, especially around sunset. Then mostly cloudy and lows in the mid 70s. But tomorrow, we could see some severe thunderstorms in our area with lots of heavy, heavy rain at times. So be aware of that. Highs will be in the low 90s. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, partly cloudy skies and thunderstorms day and night.
All right. I've got my glasses on. They're not prescription. They're just blue light glasses because I can't look at too many screens. My head will hurt. But it's time to put on the Garnet glasses, and we're going to try to find the best pathway, the path of optimism for the South Carolina Gamecocks to make their first college football playoff. Joel Klatt seems to be a believer. He's buying in. He may not have the Garnet color glasses on, but his analyst glasses he is looking through tell him that this team has a really good chance this year and the stars can align. So we're trying to figure out what will make the stars align for a very special season. Preston, you just put on your Garnet glasses. I saw it. What are you seeing through them right now?
In my Garnet glasses, what I am trying to see, Elijah, is I'm trying to convince myself that no, it is not a big deal that we lost 3 draft picks in the defensive line. That no, it's not a big deal that the Bronco Nagurski winner is not going to be in there anymore. No, it is not a big deal that our leading sack master will be there anymore because Travian Robinson is our coach. And my Garnet glasses are telling me that he is going to coach up the next set of guys, and Gabriel Brownlow-Denley is going to be what he was, and we're going to have Nick Barrett is going to finally come into his potential, and the D-line is going to be just as good as it was last year. This is the view that I'm seeing through my Garnet-colored glasses.
Oh, I love it.
It's tough to see, but I put my goggles on, and this is what I see.
All right, put mine on right now. And I see no injuries. This is amazing. This is amazing. Holy injury luck, Batman. This doesn't happen to anybody. Everyone's healthy. And later today, we get good Rasul Faison news.
Yeah, if you're listening out there, you better put your Garnet glasses on.
Yeah, you better put your Garnet glasses on, your Garnet earmuffs, whatever it takes for your emotional support. But we can get good Rasul Faison news. The schedule lighten up. Ty Simpson flops. Ole Miss and the Portal King and Lane Kiffin, none of those hit. None of them. They're dysfunctional. Lane's thinking about taking the Auburn job. They're falling asleep at home in Oxford. The team partied way too hard at the Grove. That ends up being a win. LSU still can't tackle a nosebleed, and Lenora Sellers runs for 150 yards, and they pull off a stunner in LSU. And, oh yeah, Oklahoma's John Mateer, high-risk, high-reward passer. Not so many rewards here at Willie B. Schedule breaks. It's not as daunting as we think it is at the very beginning of the season. And guess what happens?
I'm starting to see it.
You're in the college football playoff.
I'm starting to see it. I'm seeing it, Elijah.
Playing Illinois? I don't know. Maybe these things are getting fogged up when we take them off.
Okay.
All right. But that's it. That is the pathway. Like, things can happen. There's a infinite amount of outcomes.
Right.
But it's fun to be an optimist.
Yeah, and honestly, all the things that we mentioned are not far-fetched. They may be a reach. They may be a stretch. It may be best-case scenarios and all possibilities. But if any of those things happen, yes, this team has an opportunity to break through that threshold.
Now we'll continue finding Preston Thorne. His, I guess, let's put it, NFL soulmate. At least for the year.
I like it.
Because you signed 1-year contracts.
1-year deals, mercenary.
Yes.
I'm here for a good time, not a long time.
You are a mercenary.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the one I think I'm most excited to see in terms of criteria that we've been giving you. What your preference is, okay? This is the underdog tier. One of my favorite parts of if you're picking a team to bandwagon, do you want to take the road of least resistance, where you can say, you know what, I'm going to cheer for the Chiefs because I know they're probably going to be in the Super Bowl? Or do you want to get in on somebody early, which I love doing? And that's how I felt with the Golden State Warriors. I was a senior in high school. They made the playoffs for the first time, and I was like, wow, this Steph Curry guy can shoot. Klay Thompson can shoot, too. Is that Jarrett Jack? Fell in love with it. fell in love with it. And that was kind of like my secondary team for whenever the Lakers started getting really bad. I would kind of feel like, okay, it's playoff time. I need to find a bandwagon. It was the Warriors before they got really good. I love being in early on teams. So for the underdog tier, the higher the tier on a scale of 1 to 8, the bigger the underdog. And obviously the lower the tier, the more of a contender. I base this off of ESPN Bet's preseason win total projections.
Give me a 7 on this tier. I don't want the 8s. I don't want the 8s. No. You know what? Can I
Yeah, you can. I didn't tally it up.
Give me a 6.
6.
I don't want heartache. But I do like the idea of being in on a team. I like the idea of teams being fun. So if we're talking like basketball, Orlando Magic might be a squad that you might jump on right now. I like the idea. I like the ride for a team. So, yes, give me about a 6.
All right. So the teams in that 6th tier, the Carolina Panthers, the Atlanta Falcons, teams in the NFC South. Your flirtation with the Atlanta Falcons, I think, is maybe stretching beyond flirtation. I think you guys might have exchanged phone numbers at this point.
Tyler Head, paging Tyler Head.
Oh, man. Yeah, I think you guys have exchanged numbers at this point.
Okay.
Also, you're flirting pretty heavily with the New England Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks.
Seattle Seahawks, that one that keeps coming up, that keeps coming around. The Patriots have come up multiple times now. Listen, the only thing that's really holding me back from the Panthers is the dude at the top of the org chart. I'm really struggling with that. But then I also reconcile that. Yeah, but I mean, not a lot of likable billionaires out there. So I get it.
So now that I've tallied these up, the Patriots have 2.
Mm-hmm.
2 matches in your criteria. The Seahawks have 2. The Packers have 2. There's a tie for first right now. That's in the NFC South with the Buccaneers and the Falcons. Now, we still have more criteria to go, and there's still work to be done. But as we sit right now, your best matches, according to my system, my foolproof system that I thought through, you are spiritually connected to the Atlanta Falcons and Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Well, there was a little bit of news. I don't know if it's news, but there was news with Kirk Cousins saying that he might have been misled during the free agent conversations with the Falcons last year, when I thought that was a little poo-poo, I think.
I have some advice for Kirk Cousins. KYP. Know your personnel.
Yeah.
Know who you're dealing with.
Yeah.
I understand on a human surface level feeling betrayed by an organization because, I wouldn't have made this decision if you were upfront with me about your draft intentions. Understand that. Understand who you're dealing with. This is the Atlanta Falcons.
That's a solid point. Also, hey, Kirk, and I think I like Kirk.
I do. I've been a Kirk Cousins truther for a decade now. I think well I like over Kirk. A decade. I like Kirk Cousins.
But here's the deal with Kirk.
I'm in the minority there.
Remember how you came into the league, right? That team organization had a starting quarterback. Right? They drafted you during the same draft, and it was like, so
the next round.
Yeah. you know this can happen with quarterbacks. You understand how this works. Also, Kirk, you know who has not portrayed you? Whoever your banking institution is, because my God, Kirk has done very well in the NFL. Extremely well. So I understand that maybe you didn't get all the information you thought you was going to get, but you did sign a solid and exorbitant contract.
More than I can dream of.
You've done this multiple times over your career. The NFL has been very, very good to you.
Yes, and it continues to be.
Yes.
Because you're going to get paid to go away.
Right.
And that's the dream job. You have my dream job, sir.
So I have to look at what Penix does. I'm going to have to confer with Tyler Head to see what he thinks of this developing situation. Unfortunately, he's stuck in that purgatory as being a Falcons fan.
Yep, that's a lifelong thing for him.
Yeah, so we'll see if I want to join him on that, but I'm okay with it.
We have plenty of time to think. You have plenty of time to accept your fate as maybe a potential fan of a team in the NFC South, which, as one myself, I don't wish upon hardly anyone. We'll get to some calls on the other side, as well as hit up a few topics in the sports world and ask Preston if that's a take that he agrees with or if he's resting it for later. That's it to round out the second hour of the early game. Ah, summertime. It is here. And that means a different type of stain can be in your house. I know for me, we made some peach cobbler in the kitchen yesterday, and there definitely might have been a little bit of spilling. So some messy stuff to have to clean up in the house, but you can remove it the safe way with deep and lasting clean of Zero Res. And summer goes by fast, so spend your time doing what you love and let Zero Res do the work for you. Spend your time outside. Get to do things you want to do in the summer and let Zero Res handle the dirty work. Zero Res only offers this sale once a year. You can take advantage of their summer sale, 15% off carpet, air ducts, area rugs, upholstery, tile, and grout, all for 15% off. Easily schedule online at ZeroResColumbia.com. Tell them Elijah Campbell from 107.5 The Game sent you. Again, the summer sale, 15% off carpet, air ducts, area rugs, upholstery, tile, and grout. Zero Res. Spell it backwards or forwards. It's the right way to clean. A lot of fun stuff here on the Firehouse Subs text line. Again, 803-404-6100. The number is the same for the text line. It's also the same for the phone line. Our man Joe is called in again today. Joe, good morning. Welcome to the early game. How you doing today, brother?
I'm good, Elijah, man. Listen, Elijah, just in case you don't know, man, I keep my garnet glasses on 24/7.
Good.
I never take them off.
Good,
okay?
Good. Glue them to your face if you can.
I'm sitting. Preston, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, brother?
I'm sitting here looking at the schedule for next year. I've been looking at it. I have it up on my wall in my living room. And so I don't think we're going to lose any games at home, for one.
Okay.
I think we're going defeated at home. Now, when we go on the road, LSU is always if we play them at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock game, I feel good about it.
You can catch them in the hangover game.
If we play them late at night, man, that crowd could just be ridiculous, man. But their defense can't stop a nosebleed. So, I give us that win. But it's 2 games on the road that I think we can drop. So I'm looking at 10-2.
Okay.
Worst case scenario. Now, I mean, if we get a couple of lucky calls, a few fumbles here, a few fumbles there, we can easily go undefeated. That's my Gamecock, opinion.
I love that.
Yeah. So when I heard you guys talking about the DBs, I'm going to have to start Stephon. I'm going to bench Robinson, and I'm going to cut Horn. Horn came with a bunch of stuff with him. He was like a diva, man. And when you say guy, when you put diva in the same sentence with a guy, it just doesn't sit well with me. And so I have to cut Horn, man. But yeah, I'm very excited about the football season, man. If worst case scenario, I see us losing 2 games on the road, winning everything at home. And
I love it.
That's my take on it, man. I love listening to the show. It's football season. It's all talk right now, but it won't be long before the pads get on, step up, and the blows go on the field. So
yes, sir. Absolutely.
Yeah, man. Great show, man. I love listening to you guys. You guys have a good day, man.
Absolutely. You too. Appreciate the call as always, brother. And yeah, before we know it, toe will meet leather. I love the optimism. I love the buying into the Willie B home field advantage. And things can maybe break where you can win a couple of games on the road, steal some, And honestly, if his worst case scenario comes to fruition, 10-2, I think can get you into the playoffs.
Listen here, man. If 10-2 is the worst,
if that's your worst case scenario, I want it. I want it. I would absolutely love that. You'll be hosting a game in the playoff if that were to be the case. But some really good. We just got to trying to match you with some teams, try to find your soulmate in the NFL for a year. We have some interesting suggestions on the text line. We'll start off with Tim in Charlotte because he's still trying to sell you to the Panthers.
Okay.
Tim is trying hard to. I highly commend Tim's effort here.
Appreciate it, Tim.
To trying to get you in Panther blue. He says Tepper has gotten out of the way, and Dan Morgan is really leading. Feel like that's your type of guy.
My guy. Yes, Tim. Thank you for listening. 1, 2. We get each other. I understand. I do like the idea of putting Dan Morgan in position. He's absolutely lead football guy. I think Dan Morgan, if you look on his LinkedIn profile, it says football guy.
It does.
So he's definitely there. I take your points, I accept them, and I will consider them.
And now it's funny because our pal Josh Yellman, Dreamy Josh, has asked ChatGPT. And when we have more time, I'll read out the entire thing because it is pretty funny. But ChatGPT said you should cheer for the Seahawks. And we'll start counting these. One of our texters here in the Firehouse Subs text line asked Grok, artificial intelligence for those who don't know, who Preston should pull for, and he gave them the criteria that you played under Holtz in South Carolina, wants a team with moderate to good success and joy on Sundays. And the top 2 answers, 49ers, due to the recent success, and Deebo Samuel. And second option was Packers. Now, unfortunately, Deebo no longer in San Francisco, but he was there.
And this is why we always have to be careful when we put stuff in the AI machine, because sometimes the AI just spits stuff out and it doesn't know what it's talking about.
Does Grok not follow Adam Schefter?
It doesn't quite matter to Grok or ChatGPT or Gemini or any of them. So you always got to be a little bit careful when you're sourcing them.
See, that's one thing. If you asked Gronk instead, he would probably be able to tell you that Deebo's a commander.
Who's more likely to give you the wrong answer, Grok or Gronk?
That might still be Gronk. Yeah, that might still be Gronk. When was the last time you think that guy read a book? That wasn't like Cat in the Hat.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
But maybe Gronk would tell you.
Maybe we'll see. And Joe, to answer that question, the LSU game is in a flex window, so it's either going to be the afternoon or night. We'll see how that goes.
And then Walt also kind of hammers home the point with Washington. He says, Preston, I've been saying the Commanders, Deebo, Kinlaw, and did we forget the head ball coach had a, in parentheses, unforgettable stint there. He had a stint as a coach.
If you're a Commanders fan, if you're a football team fan, if you're watching, I wish they would have kept the Washington football team. I really like that.
The jerseys went kind of hard too.
Yeah, if you're a fan of that squad, that window is wide open right now. It looks like you got a quarterback. You finally got an ownership team that is willing to not be creeps, not be thieves. You have an acceptable ownership squad.
Not morally bankrupt.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is if that's your team, that's a good spot to be right now. New stadium coming. A lot of things looking on upward trajectory for that squad.
I love Jaden Daniels, man.
Yeah.
I love Jaden.
He's somebody who has consistently surprised me. Every time I'm like, oh yeah, I guess he did win the Heisman. Oh, Rookie of the Year? Wow. Oh, he playoff wins? Oh, okay. Oh, this guy's really good.
A road playoff win against a 15-2 team as a rookie?
Yeah, he's been really good.
Like the funny thing about, I guess, Jaden Daniels is that he started off so bad at Arizona State that first year as a starter. Like he knew he could run, but the passing was terrible. And then he got to where he's maybe one of the best downfield passers in all the NFL. His development and his story has been so fun to be able to keep up with. Well, that's 2 hours in the books. We have one more left. We will do a little reset. We're going to talk about the Gamecock secondary and revisit a fun defensive back, start, bench, drop, all that coming up in the 8 o'clock hour here in the early game.
All right, another new accident. This one's going to be up in Newberry, I-26. It's going to be eastbound, and it is at SC 219, exit 76. Still have that wreck 20 westbound at Alpine Road, exit 76B, and broken down car 20 eastbound just before Highway 1, exit 58. That one in Lexington. Your weather outlook for today, partly cloudy skies, thunderstorms in the afternoon, highs in the low 90s. For tomorrow, though, we could see severe thunderstorms, heavy rain. So be aware of that. Storms could be extremely severe, they're saying. Highs in the low 90s. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, scattered thunderstorms, highs in the 90s. Captain Dave, Wetzel Automotive Traffic Center.
Good morning, early game crew. 2 hours down, one more to go. I'm Elijah Campbell. He's Preston Thorne. Dave Adair behind the glass. Captain Dave Adair. How dare I mess up his title. One more time this morning. Can we give it up for Dave Adair? Can we give it up? Round of applause. He doesn't normally come in early, but with Jen being on vacation, she returns tomorrow. Captain Dave Adair coming in relief, like a great relief pitcher, like Goose Gossage coming in to close.
It's like what do they call it? It's like a 4-out save. You know, like one of the things it's extended, right?
Yeah,
It's
an extended save.
It's extended save. Yeah. So kudos.
I look forward to not driving in behind the big garbage trucks that are out at 5 in the morning.
Or I'm sure you're just going to look forward to not having to be awake at 5 in the morning.
Yeah, that's true.
But thank you for being here. Captain Dave's done a fantastic job. Doing a fantastic job all day. He did in the first hour as well when we talked a lot about the Gamecock secondary. That's kind of the theme today. And, of course, we're keeping our eye on the Rasul Faison decision, which is expected to be handed down, ruled upon today. But we've been focusing on individual groups. And today we really locked in on the Gamecock secondary. I think specifically Jalen Kilgore. Because of all the NFL talent that got drafted last year, Jalen Kilgore's the guy that led the team in interceptions here. Had one guy get 5. This could be a year that sees Jalen Kilgore add his name to a list of great South Carolina cornerbacks to be able to get drafted in the NFL.
Now, that's the key.
First round.
Let's put an asterisk by that phrase, cornerback. Because what's going to happen is we need to figure out, or they need to figure out, and we're going to learn how do they plan to use Jalen this year. So last year he played that overhang safety nickel kind of guy. Nickel guy. So was he a nickel corner? Was he a nickel safety? Is he just a versatility? Is he just the Swiss Army knife of the cornerbacks where he can play any position? I think the biggest thing they're going to have to figure out for this particular secondary is where is Jalen going to go, and then everybody else fits around him, because they have these other pieces. But if I'm looking at it, Jalen is the best player. Now, does Jalen is he best playing that nickel position, or Brandon Cisse? Does Brandon Cisse play the nickel position and you move Jalen to free safety? That's for the dudes that make a bunch of money to figure out. But I think that's the question that we're going to have to learn.
Get paid handsomely to figure that out.
They get paid a lot of money to figure that out, and that's where they're going to. How do you best deploy this specific weapon?
And looking at Jalen Kilgore in terms of where his snap alignment was last year, 577 snaps.
Oh, this is good, Elijah.
From the slot.
Say this one more time.
577 snaps from the slot, or the nickel. I guess you can consider that. He used 31 snaps at free safety, and 14 of those was in the Old Dominion game. So really, outside the Old Dominion game, 16 snaps.
That's a feather in the cap of the coaching staff. They saw something. They tried it early in the season. They're like,
we like something else better.
Yes, and that's kudos to them for doing that.
That's an adjustment. And then his second most popular spot, 165 snaps in the box. Maybe as a blitzer, or maybe with a different type of, coverage where it allows him to be closer in, or maybe just in on run-stopping duty. Because that's the one thing about Jalen Kilgore. that doesn't get talked about enough because the interceptions are sexy. The Alabama play interception really, no pun intended, turned the tide of that game and got them within 2 at the break, and really was the first time you put a scare into Alabama that afternoon. Had a big interception against Illinois. I mean, you had 5 picks. A lot of them were timely. One sealed the deal against Missouri. One kept you from getting upset against Old Dominion to start the season. And who knows what type of year we have if Old Dominion end up scoring on that drive. Brother, my brain doesn't want to go down that road.
Not enough Garnet goggles in the building for those.
Oh, I know Kenny on our text line was talking about having smeared Garnet glasses. Everybody's would be broken, yes. I think, at that point. There would be an extinction of Garnet-colored glasses if they were to have dropped that game. But Jalen Kilgore kept you from doing it with the interception. But his highest grade on PFF, we talked about this in Old Man versus Analytics in the first hour. Highly recommend going back to check that out on our YouTube page. But 74 was his run stop grade. He was really good in the run game. And I think that could be a really big difference in helping out the run defense, too, because we focused on the defensive line. But maybe Jalen Kilgore is a bigger part of that picture than we previously anticipated.
And that's probably why, if I had to bet, they would probably leave him at that nickel overhang safety guy, because he has the opportunity to play closer to the line of scrimmage to affect plays that are there when teams are trying to throw the screen game, when they're trying to throw the short passing game. He can be more effective in it, and that probably makes a lot more sense. And also, that's why he's projected in some projections to be a very high draft pick, first round, early second round, because anytime you get you somebody who could do both.
Yes,
right? That's what they say, right?
That's what the kids say.
That's what the kids say in these days. Get you somebody who can do both. Well, he can play the pass, obviously, by his interceptions, and his pass is broken up, but he also had 3 tackles for loss this year. Very good on blitzing, very good playing at the line of scrimmage. So he's somebody who is next in a long line of dudes who have played defensive back here.
And one player that I think is going to play a significant role, because the last 2 years you've had one cornerback of NFL caliber that you could trust to shut down part of the field and just man matchup over near the boundary. Marcellus Style a couple years ago. O'Donnell Fortune, I thought, was fantastic last season. Really, that's the one player that didn't get drafted for South Carolina that I thought absolutely should have been drafted.
He wasn't drafted. I predict he'll have a long NFL career.
Oh, yeah. His ball skills are too good. He has incredible ball skills, and I don't care what he runs in his underwear. I don't. I never will. Some teams put way too much stock in that type of stuff. He didn't impress at the combine, whatever. But O'Donnell Fortune was amazing last year. Does Judge Collier come in this year and kind of fill that role of corners who have been here for a couple of years, step up into that role as maybe the main corner? And, of course, Brandon Cisse is probably going to take that as well. But can Judge Collier step up and kind of be the guy similar to what O'Donnell Fortune and Marcellus Style were the last few years?
That's one of the great fortunes that Clayton has had since he's been a DC here. Is he's had a lockdown corner, and that makes
pun intended.
Yes, and that makes your job so much easier when you essentially could say, hey, I don't have to worry about this side of the field as much. We can bring, you know, Clayton likes to bring a lot of corner blitzes. He likes to do a lot of things and be aggressive. Well, the only way you can be that aggressive is if you are confident that somebody's going to cover. Judge Collier, Vakari Swain, Brandon Cisse, one of those 3 has to step up and take that position. Well, I don't know who it's going to be, but I assume it'll be one of those 3.
And I think it can be Collier, because when looking through a lot of the numbers yesterday, I noticed he was targeted, and this could be merely just football coincidence. Maybe Old Dominion and the way they run their offense liked a matchup, or they were just avoiding O'Donnell Fortune, right? They liked a matchup that they saw, because Judge Collier, or at least the receiver he was covering, was targeted 10 times. Maybe they just trusted that receiver there. I don't know. But for the rest of the season, there were only a handful of games, 2 games, where he was targeted more than 4 times. And that was LSU and Vanderbilt. Obviously, LSU throws the ball a lot. Vanderbilt throws the ball a lot, but in short distances. That maybe could be a sign that teams maybe started to respect his ball skill ability. And he did have a few pass breakups last year. And I thought as the season went on, defensively, he was one of the players that stuck out to me as somebody who showed serious signs of development. And if, obviously Torian Gray's got some real feathers in the cap with O'Donnell Fortune, Marcellus Style, Nick Emenwari. But the development of what happened with Collier may be one of his best works.
I think that's a really interesting point you bring up about Torian Gray, because in a lot of these other positions, we talk about guys coming in, we talk about transfers, and a majority of these DBs are homegrown. They were recruited out of high school. When you talk about DQ Smith, Peyton Williams, Judge Collier, Jalen Kilgore, Vakari Swain, all of these dudes came out of high. The only one that's coming in is Brandon Cisse this year, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we know when Torian puts his stamp on them and then develops them, they turn into pretty good DBs.
That really a testament to what he is as a developer. Sure. Recruiting is one thing, and we can talk recruiting all day, whether you're getting little uns or big uns, but developing them into being better players obviously is more important. We did a start bench drop earlier today as well, and we've gotten some really good submissions, but 3 defensive backs for South Carolina, because, I mean, underrated school in terms of producing defensive backs. Real good case that maybe Carolina's DBU.
There's an argument. I can make this argument, and there is an argument to be made.
Whether the argument's won or not is up to the debater itself, but Stephon Gilmore, Dante Robinson, J.C. Horn, 3 guys in the modern NFL era taken in the first round from this very same school. Who are you starting? Who are you benching? Who are you dropping? And right now, it's a pretty dominant Stephon Gilmore. So Joe starts Gilmore, benches Robinson, cuts Horn. An anonymous texter starting Gilmore, benching Horn, dropping Robinson. No, that's Steven. Sorry, Steven. I didn't see the end of the text. But that's what he's going. One texter says dropping J.C. Horn, says the other 2 I can figure out depending on the situation, but because he's my friend, start Stephon Gilmore and then bench Dante Robinson. I'm all for starting your friends. I'm all for it. I'm here for all of that. And then Marshall even drops in a Stephon Gilmore tidbit. Says, I remember after the first couple of practices, Stephan's freshman year, Spurrier was asked something regarding depth chart of his defense. His response was something along the lines of, there's only one person playing well enough to know they're going to start somewhere, and that's Stephon.
Yeah, which is amazing because we'll hear from Steph here in a second. Apparently the folks that wear purple bridges did not think that he could play for them. So that's how he ended up getting here.
Is that going to have any impact on who you choose to be your favorite NFL team?
As far as where Steph has played or who he picks?
Or who he picks.
No, that won't have any impact.
Okay.
That won't have any impact. I will check them out. My loyalty sort of goes, did I play with them? Did they play with the Gamecocks? He fits in that second category. I don't necessarily have to pick one of those teams.
So if he picks the Buccaneers, then maybe you're leaning that way.
Then I might have to do that. Then, yeah. I don't know.
But who are you starting, benching, dropping? We'll go ahead and give ours right now.
I'll give mine.
It's impossible.
I have to. I am biased. I played with Dante. We were recruited in the same class. I've known that dude for a long time. He's one of the best people that I know, aside from him being a hell of a ball player. So I have to start Dante, much like somebody started their friend. So I will go start Dante, bench Steph, and cut JC. JC was tremendous.
Yes.
He was just around during a very tumultuous time in our history.
See, I'm starting Stephon because of just everything he can do. And maybe I'm a little biased because the Wildcat quarterbacking thing, which we'll hear him talk about in the next segment, because that's really cool. But I'm honestly one of the best 5 or 6, I guess, corners. I need to make the list so I can definitively put him somewhere in it. But he's one of my favorite cornerbacks that I've ever watched. I will bench J.C. Horn, and I think solely off the back of the Auburn game in 2020. Because in terms of individual performances, I like to weigh out what your best individual performance is. And that individual performance against Auburn, where he picked off, 3 passes? And he had a deflection on almost every single ball thrown his way. I think the Bo Nix time at Auburn was broken after they came to Willie B. And J.C. Horn completely manhandled that Auburn offense. That was impressive enough for me to be able to win it. And then closely, Dante.
Can I give you a tidbit before we close?
Yes, I love tidbits.
How old were you in 2003?
In 2003, I was 8 years old.
You were a staunch Volunteer fan at the time?
I was, and I remember Dante Robinson making a play in the corner of the Neyland Stadium end zone to keep Tennessee out of it.
He did, but he also dropped a punt that game.
Oh, was that him?
That was Dante. And here's the problem.
That was the Dustin Colquitt game, too.
That was the game.
That was
here's the problem with when this happens. When your best player makes a mistake in a game, there's nothing you can do.
No.
You can't say anything to him. You can't get upset. When your best player makes the one mistake he makes all his career, it's like, oh, yeah. So that might be why you want to move him up, because he did.
You know what? I'll think about that. That was a happy memory for me. I remember watching that game at my grandparents' house, and of course, like they watched the game with as much sports anxiety of anybody I've ever met in my life. And I've never seen a punter more cheered in my life than Dustin Colquitt in that game.
He was dropping bombs.
That was the night I learned the value of field position. And I do remember the drop punt, which now knowing that it was Dante Robinson, again, I was 8 at the time, don't remember that it was him, seems more like an act of God moment
for sure.
Than anything else.
For sure, yeah.
Blew my mind there. Yeah, wild game, not the prettiest in terms of how it went down.
Right exactly where we wanted it.
But that's where you want it. That's the Preston Thorne wheelhouse. Also, in our wheelhouse, Stephon Gilmore, we're going to hear from him talking about his 2019 season, his recruiting process, and playing the Wildcat quarterback position for Coach Spurrier. All that coming up next on the early game.
Right, the latest wreck is at Park Lane Road at O'Neill Court. Also, a wreck out on 26 eastbound in Newberry County is SC 219, exit number 76. So look out for those problems. And then your weather outlook for today, well, hot 90 degrees with a good chance of thunderstorms this afternoon. Also, some thunderstorms around sunset tonight, low in the mid-70s. Tomorrow, though, extremely heavy thunderstorms are possible with lots of rain, so be careful about that. Could be extremely severe thunderstorms. Tomorrow's highs in the low 90s. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, partly cloudy skies for most of the days, but a chance of thunderstorms. Captain Dave, Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center.
We don't get to hear from Stephon Gilmore often. Corners are, a lot of them are known for trash talking, and they're arguably for ranking positions. Preston Thorne, are they stereotypically the best trash talkers on the field? I feel like that's a wide receiver and cornerback discussion.
They're the most trash talkers on the field. Now, I don't know if they're the best, but they're the most. Both of them talk a lot because it's the same dude. They're the same dude. You know, the old saying, one could catch, one couldn't catch. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but they are the same archetype of person.
Yes, absolutely. But Stephon Gilmore doesn't necessarily match that mold. Stereotypically, not the a trash talky corner, not talking a lot. But he did speak the other day, and this is on yesterday's cut sheet, Dave. He was on the Money Down podcast and got to share a lot of really fun stories that we know Gamecock fans are going to thoroughly enjoy.
Yeah, because you don't hear from Steph very often. He's I wouldn't say recluse, but he just doesn't talk very much. Yeah. And so to hear him expound on some of his experiences was really cool.
And I want to start about the recruiting process, too, because obviously an in-state guy from Rock Hill, a place that is known for producing amazing football talent.
Football city.
Cut 7, Dave. What was Stephon Gilmore's recruiting process like?
It was crazy because I think I had like 30 scholarship offers, but South Carolina wasn't really, in the play at first. I took a visit to Alabama. I was thinking about going there. That's when they was saying, and I looked at Clemson too, and and I took a visit there. I didn't really like it. And then I think a coach told me at Clemson that no matter what I do, I won't start. That's what he told me. I'm like, you won't give me the opportunity to just show you? I'm like, man, so I took a visit. I'm like, let me take a visit to South Carolina. I knew their defense was good back then. I know they put a lot of DBs in the league. And I went to an LSU game they played, and they beat them. And their defense was balling out. I'm like, I'm going to go to South Carolina. I'm going to stay at home. I'm playing the SEC. I'm going to get to play against all the top dogs. So that's kind of how it went.
Imagine telling Stephon Gilmore you're probably not going to play much or start as a freshman.
Whoever that coach is, I know they're like, I didn't say that. That's not what I meant. I said, that's not, he heard it. Yeah, you said it, brother. You ruined it.
You better be thanking your lucky stars that Stephon didn't dox you in that interview and reveal who you are if you're still in coaching circles.
Yeah. Chances are you might not be if you made that.
Because that's a mistake that can get you out of it.
Especially when you put it combined with what we saw from the text that was Spurrier saying, yeah, I don't know who else is playing, but this freshman is definitely him.
Yeah. You knew right away. And I love looking at some of the highlights from his freshman year and, of course, the broadcasters. Find you someone in life, Preston Thorne, that loves you the way broadcasters love reminding you that player is a true freshman.
Yes, yeah. It's a thing.
They made it abundantly clear, right? And he made some game-saving plays early on in the season. Remember, at NC State, almost picks off Russell Wilson in the end zone on a play that's basically a jump ball, and he wins it. He wins. It was a 7-3 game.
You just put me in a time machine just now with that Russell Wilson, NC State. Also when he said that, he talked about the idea of coming to South Carolina because they had put so many guys in the league. So that's coming off the heels of Sheldon Brown being in the league, Dante Robinson being in the league. Jonathan Joseph being in the league, another guy, another dude from Rock Hill. So he's seeing this happen and seeing that it's a possibility from here.
Yeah, he had a little bit of a crystal ball into South Carolina, potentially being a DBU. But he played a lot of quarterback in high school.
As I told you all, we literally did not tackle him.
The entire game.
Literally.
You could have put the little infinity symbol underneath the stat line for yards for Stephon Gilmore because he only stopped when he wanted to.
That is not an exaggeration.
Legendary high school quarterback in the great state of South Carolina. And Steve Spurrier, one of my favorite Steve Spurrier moves was putting in a package to put him at quarterback. And Stephon Gilmore understood maybe the number one rule of being the quarterback at South Carolina that time frame. Throw the ball in the area code of Alshon Jeffrey, and he's going to catch it. But Stephon Gilmore also elaborated on playing Wildcat quarterback at South Carolina. Here's what he had to say. Cut 8.
It was crazy because I played quarterback in high school. I didn't play no defense at all.
No.
None. So, like, I got recruited as an athlete. You know, Spurrier recruited me. He's like, man, you should play receiver. I'm like, man, I don't want to play receiver. My dad was like, man, you a corner. Just play corner. Because I used to go to camps and just, like, shut everybody down. Now I never played corner, you know. And so, like, I was just like, I want to play defense. And Spurrier was like, we need to get you on the offensive side of the ball. So he'll put like a little package in with me. So I go in and, you know, I get the team down all the way down to the goal line. He take me out of the game. Won't let me put it in. So, but he wanted me to play offense so bad. I just knew with my height and my knowledge of the game and I could run, you know, I can be, I was thinking about the future. I was thinking about the league and I just wanted to play corner, you know, so,
but he put some passes on a rope, man, at his time. I think my favorite one was in the Peach Bowl back when they played that bad boy at the Georgia Dome, RIP. It was more aesthetically pleasing, that bowl game, wasn't it?
Correct.
In that dome, I would say. SEC Championship, too. I love the stadium in Atlanta, but aesthetically, the SEC Championship game, Peach Bowl, always fun in the Georgia Dome. But anyway, in that game, throws a pass to Alshon Jeffrey, maybe traveled like 25, 30 yards in the air, but he put that sucker on a rope, man. Maybe he could have played quarterback at the college level and done it really well in a specific type of offense.
Here's the most absurd thing out of that whole clip. South Point was so good at football during that time that they had a future Hall of Famer, and it was like, you don't really need to play defense. We got all these other dudes. Devontae Holloman. There's a young Jadeveon Clowney that's way down in the farm system coming up. We have so many players now. We don't even need you don't need to go both ways. You can stay over there and play quarterback as long as you want because we are so talented. That's ridiculous.
A guy who's will be a Hall of Fame defensive back. Didn't play defensive back with pads on. So they didn't camps.
Because they didn't have to.
They didn't need to. Didn't need to.
They didn't need to.
Just put him at quarterback, let him make
ridiculous.
plays.
That's ridiculous, yeah.
Just an unbelievable career arc from Stephon Gilmore. Really hoping he joins a team that gives him a chance to win a Super Bowl. We'll see. And maybe if he decides to sign with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, maybe that convinces Preston Thorne to be a Bucs fan, even though Mama Thorne would not be very pleased.
Not as long as Baker's the quarterback.
Nope. That's a big decision that Preston, however, has to make. The NCAA seemingly has made a decision because allegedly, the word on the street is that today could be decision day for Rasul Faison's eligibility. We'll discuss that when the early game continues.
right, an accident on Harbison Boulevard. It's on Harbison Boulevard at I-26. Also one at Park Lane at O'Neill Court, Raven Road at Farrow Road. That is your latest accident there. We are standing at 76 degrees right now with a barometric pressure 30.08 and rising, relative humidity 88%. So not too bad at the moment. Now, it's going to be partly cloudy today with a chance of thunderstorms, of course, highs in the low 90s. And for tomorrow, though, scattered thunderstorms, and they could be extremely severe, especially in the afternoon and evening. Highs will be in the low 90s, and a very good chance of those heavy rainstorms tomorrow.
It's very appropriate that the song that brings us back from break is called Closer, because today is the closest we've ever been to a Rasul Faison decision. Supposed to be, or expected to be, today. In Preston, the more the days have gone by, the more the 7 months have gone by since they applied for this year of eligibility, and we've gotten zero answer. As much as I want to put on the Garnet goggles and look through it and say, you know what? They're going to give him a chance. They're going to give him this year. The run game isn't going to skip a beat from last year. We're going to get a 1,000-yard rusher at Willie B this year. I don't know if I can get myself there because my context clues tell me no. My heart wants to tell me yes.
Now, your main context clue is just the length of time this is taking?
Yes, absolutely. That usually when things go this long, you're not going to get the answer you want.
As I've stated, I don't necessarily even know what the case is. Is it just a matter of there's some funny business on his transcript and they don't know whether that actually constituted a year of eligibility? Is it because he's played too long? What is the actual holdup?
I want to say it was because, like, at his first stop, he attended a junior college but didn't play.
Okay.
And that might have been they're deciding if that would count towards your eligibility clock. But I don't. But it is a weird gray area, which the NCAA doesn't necessarily do well at operating in. But given some of the precedent with Diego Pavia, I think Diego Pavia kind of opened the floodgates for the NCAA to be scrutinized a little more with these type of decisions, because now eligibility is becoming more of a fact of staying in the way between player and financial gain.
Okay, so there's two questions that are happening. Diego Pavia's trip to Lawsuit City was essentially about, y'all are stopping me from earning money.
It was an antitrust angle.
Zakai Ziegler's idea was an eligibility angle, almost strictly, right?
Yes.
I don't know if he lost his appeal or he rescinded, but essentially they decided to not further pursue that.
Yes, they said, the court stated that they didn't find a reasonable claim that the NCAA is keeping him from potential earnings because of the eligibility clock.
Now, the NCAA does not do precedent very well, but if they did, that would make me probably take my Garnet goggles off.
Yeah, and here's the thing with the Ziegler thing as well that's interesting in terms of the angle that he hit at. He wanted to add another year
for grad school. For reference, somebody who might not know, what was the Ziegler case?
Yes, Zakai Ziegler sued the
Lawsuit
NCAA.
City, here we go.
Yeah, lawsuit. We're going back. Yep, we got rerouted. Rerouting you back to Lawsuit City. I don't want to go to Lawsuit City. We are rerouting you back to Lawsuit City. So we're heading back because Zakai Ziegler claimed essentially that if he is staying another year in grad school, that he should be able to play. I'm trying to summarize it, give you the Spark Notes version as much as possible, that he should be able to play basketball and get that 5th year of eligibility despite playing really 3 3/4 of a season. He did tear his ACL in, I believe, late February of 23. It was 23, tore his ACL late in the season, and technically had 4 almost full seasons, but claimed that because some players can get that grad year at another school, he should be able to get that grad year at Tennessee.
Okay, so
despite playing 4 years.
So there's maybe, okay, so that's that angle. Now,
Yes.
Miles Studi, he went the injury angle, correct?
Yes, and it was in that gray area where he might have technically only played a game or two above the limit, because it's a percentage of the season that you're not supposed to surpass in order to be granted a medical red shirt. But he was granted that, I think in large part because of maybe what the diagnosis was. He was diagnosed with deep vein thrombosis, and I think that might have had something to do with it. And it might not have been but a game or two. I mean, it wasn't long into the season at all before he was basically ruled out for the rest of the year. Zakai Ziegler, on the other hand, tearing his ACL against Arkansas, and that was like the last home game of the season.
Of note, Miles Studi and Rasul Faison have obtained the same counsel, Darren Heitner.
Yep.
So he is 1-1 for the Gamecocks. I guess we're seeing where this goes now.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Maybe the Miles Studi thing gives you hope because of the representation, the fact that he did kind of lawyer up to move this process along faster. You'd like to think that that helped in this situation. But Coach Beamer has been pretty open about what they've sent to the NCAA, that everything that has been asked, they have sent. And I think the biggest part of the frustration isn't necessarily whether or not he is ruled eligible, but it more along the lines of sits where, why is this taking so long? Because you have to be able to fill out your roster and prepare. Look, before they were able to be fortunate enough to get Augustave from the transfer portal from Colorado, who was Colorado's leading rusher last year. Before that happened, you were banking on bringing Rasul Faison in to be your number one running back, and he allows you a lot of versatility within your offense. We saw what Rocket Sanders did last season in terms of being a weapon in the running game that a defense had to respect. Faison brings that from a workhorse back perspective because he was at Utah State. He ran for over 1,000 yards in the Mountain West. Unfortunately for him, his Mountain West production gets overshadowed by another fella who ended up being the 6th overall pick in the NFL draft and having one of the best seasons maybe in the history of college football.
Who, by the way, ran for 1,900 yards after contact.
After contact. He ran for more yards after contact, Ashton Jeanty did, than almost any running back in college football. I think 1,900 yards might have been like what Caleb Johnson from Iowa ran for, and he was the second leading back in the nation. But when it comes to Faison, you're bringing him in to be the workhorse. You're bringing him in to give him the ball 15 times a game. And as much as we like Oscar Attaway, and as much as Oscar Attaway showed a lot of really good stuff in the bowl game as being a number one back because Rocket didn't play, in Oscar's career, he's never had a season where he was the team's leading rusher in terms of carries. So you're banking on him being the change of pace back. You have an idea of what you want your team to be going into the year. But when the NCAA kind of piddles around, kicks the can down the road, maybe lost paperwork. I don't know what they do in those offices. I don't know how responsible some of them are with the paperwork in terms of who is actually responsible for this case specifically and deeming eligibility. But you can't sit 7 months in the offseason and have no idea what your running back room is going to look like. And that's why they had to go into the portal and get Augustave. And now it's one of those things like, all right, well, now I guess we have a backup plan, a contingency plan. But you really put the player and the coaches in a really tough spot for 7 months.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate when you especially think about the player because either this is going to work and he's going to have something that he's doing for the next 6 months or he's going to have to figure out life after this. And it probably shouldn't be in the hands of a governing body who doesn't have much teeth anywhere else except in your specific legislation. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't rule anything else except your life. And that's a really tough spot for that young person to be in, but it's what it is. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens.
It's one of the uncontrollables for South Carolina this year. And we did talk earlier in the show, go back down on the YouTube page and catch it if you missed it, about some of the uncontrollables that might go in South Carolina's favor. But as we wrap up today's show, it's time to award a winner. Football's got winners and losers. And we decided, you know what? As a radio program, we like to hand out awards. Who's the winner of the day show? And what's our number of the day show? Because we put a lot of numbers on this program. We'll tell you who the winners are when the early game rounds out today's show. I have a question for you. Yes, you. Are tax troubles weighing you down? Are they bothering you? Is it becoming a pest, like a small point guard that it keeps stealing the ball from you? Well, the Ecton Law Firm is here, and you don't need to let that happen any longer. Let those stresses of taxes be taken care of today by the Ecton Law Firm. You can set up a consultation, give them a buzz, 803-771-9800, because they have a local team resolving your income or business tax issues for good. They understand the challenges you or your businesses can face, and that's why John Ecton and his team are perfectly qualified to offer you that peace of mind. They've got proven local solutions, and they've helped thousands of families and businesses just like yours escape that pesky IRS maze. Take that first step. Give them a call, 803-771-9800, or visit EctonLawFirm.com. That's ECTONLawFirm.com. Mike Singletary wanted winners. Can't do it if he doesn't have winners.
Can't do it.
Arguably one of the best press conference rants.
Up there.
I still put Denny Greens. They are who we thought they were.
We're gonna have to get our good friend Langston Moore to give us the Pablo Torre version of what actually happened because he was on that squad.
Oh my God! Yes,
he was on that squad, so he knows the before and the aftermath of that particular game. Yes,
that is one of the more fascinating football games of my lifetime because the Bears won that game without having to do anything on offense. Langston could hang his hat on how he played.
Yeah, when you think about it, Langston has sort of like a Forrest Gumpian sort of idea to his NFL career. The Detroit Lions, they are who we thought they were. He has a couple of states that's like, oh yeah, you were there for that? Wow, okay. So yeah, we'll have to get him for that.
That has sparked an idea within me for a video podcast that I cannot wait to unlock. But we're going to grant Mike Singletary's wish, and today we're going to assign winners of today's show. Preston Thorne, your winner.
My winning number. Let's start with a winning number.
Winning number.
You gave me a number today that blew my mind. You've done it often. If we were doing this yesterday, I would have said the Ashton Janty 1,900 yards after contact. Insane. That was a winner from yesterday. But today, we've been focusing on our guy Jalen Kilgore. You gave me the number, and I believe this is it. He lined up in this nickel, playing the slot 571 times. He played a lot of football. He played a lot of football at a specific position, and he was very good at that position. So that was the number that gives me an indication. And when you gave me that number of saying he played this many at this position, this many at this spot, he played 571 times at the nickel, but also he played 165 snaps in the box. That means this dude is tough as nails, and he's looking for some really exciting things from Jalen this year.
Related to that, because that's my second favorite Jalen Kilgore number today, 74. 74 was his run stop grade. Now, PFF, they're tough graders. If you get anything in the 80s, you're almost elite. In the 70s, you're really good. 90s is breaking the grade scale, right? 74 for his run stopping grade. This is a defensive back who has one of the highest run stopping grades on the team last year. And it's easy to look at last year and look at what Jalen Kilgore did, almost underratedly, getting the interception to seal the deal against Old Dominion, because Lord knows what the season would have looked like if they end up getting upset in that game. But the interceptions were the highlight of Jalen Kilgore. Clearly, when you tie for the league lead in picks, that's going to be what people gravitate towards. But the value of him in the run game, making him a better all-around defensive back, not only makes him one of the more valuable players on this team, that's one of the things that pro scouts look at and say, you are more than playable. If there are any issues in coverage, that's fixable, because a lot of that's technique, a lot of that's the hips, but your want to in stopping the run game and being a sure-handed tackler at that position, I think sets him up pretty well into the future.
Yeah, Jalen has a chance to join a long list of dudes who played that overhang, nickel, spur, however you want to call the position. These dudes have been fantastic in the lore of South Carolina football, whether you're talking about Rashad Faison, Willie Alford, Devontae Holloman. Those dudes have always been sort of like your fan favorite guy.
Yes.
It may not be the quote unquote best player on the defense, but it's always the guy who makes plays. And when this dude can come up, make plays behind the line of scrimmage, go back, make plays in coverage, I would imagine that you're going to see, and I don't think he's changing his number, because they like to do that now. Don't change your number your senior year.
I'm familiar with you at this number.
So I believe we're going to see a lot of 24s around the stadium. And I would have mentioned there's going to be a generation of young people growing up. It's like, man, that was my guy.
And if you're assigning a winner, an individual winner for today's show,
this is a good one. I'm going to give J.C. Horn some love.
Yes.
I'm going to give J.C. Horn some love because, as you stated, he played at South Carolina during a time where it was a dark time to be a fan. COVID, Will Muschamp, in whatever order you want to put those in. It was a tough time to be a fan, but he gave us a little bit of joy during that time. He's the founder of the Seatbelt Gang.
Yes.
And if you watch sports all around, you'll see people putting on their seatbelt. That is something that he did. Also, JC, a new father to a baby Gamecock from him and Bria Beal. So we are going to give JC some love, and JC, you get the winner for the day.
Absolutely.
Not to mention solid contract with the Panthers.
Yeah, he's living pretty nicely right now, and I wonder how his dad feels about that being a longtime New Orleans Saints receiver, and I wonder if his dad calls him on the cell phone that he pulled out of the goalpost.
So two generational celebrations.
It is. Honestly, that didn't click for me. No pun intended with the seatbelt thing, involved here, or at least intended. But yeah, Joe Horn, legendary touchdown celebration, pulling the cell phone out. Still remember watching that game live on Sunday Night Football back when Sunday Night Football was on ESPN. That was a fun time.
Who's your winner for the day?
You know what? I'm going to. We didn't talk about this guy a lot, but I like the attention he brought to South Carolina. Joel Klatt.
Nice.
I don't agree with Joel Klatt on a lot of different takes, but I like listening to him. And he had South Carolina as the number 3 team that is most likely to make their first college football playoff appearance this year. Not just the attention that he's bringing to the university and giving us that affirmation that we wanted here, in as a fan base, as a media market.
You like us. You really like us.
You really like us. We're going to go full Sally Field here. You really, really like us. But also the juiciness of having Illinois as number 1, saying that it's this year's Indiana.
We need to do something with this because is this a thing now?
Oh, we're talking about this tomorrow.
Rivals?
Oh, we're talking about this tomorrow. It's like the opposite of the Step Brothers scene where, did we just become best friends? Did we just become hated enemies? Do I hate you now?
Yes.
We'll answer that tomorrow. Thank you all for tuning in today. Fantastic show. Looking forward to seeing you again bright and early tomorrow.
Appreciate y'all.